Welcome to Wagons West on Thursday, April the 4th. It's been a busy week in the Great White North, and joining me from all the way on the other side of it is Mr. Alex Cargill. Alex, welcome tonight, sir.
Yeah, brother. Good to be here, man. What's happening?
Oh, not too much. Just as you probably know, all across Canada, we had that carbon tax protest, I guess, ongoing. I shouldn't say the other day. I should say it's happening as we speak. But we had, sorry, I've got my wires caught up here. We had quite a police response in Alberta. I don't know if you caught that.
Yeah, I did. The unmarked police thing gave me the chills when I saw it in Ottawa as well. It was like, those Stay Puft Marshmallow costumes they were wearing with no name tags on them. It's creepy. It's an intimidation thing. Yep. Creepy. Creepy times we live in. When you go to Mordor, expect to see orcs. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, man. Were you part of that protest? Did you get out there?
No, I didn't go to the carbon tax protest. Actually, we could talk about that. I felt like, I want to go there, but I didn't feel compelled. Like I went to the Coots blockade and I went to some of the other protests and rallies, but there wasn't like some deep compulsion and compelling to go, like a calling, I guess, if you will.
Yeah.
So I didn't. And in my head, I don't want to knock anybody actually going to the protests, but I was of the mind of, I don't know what this will accomplish this time. I don't know what it will accomplish. But as I see the images and the videos of the cops without the name tags and covered faces, all that kind of thing, all over the place, I realized that what it did accomplish is it showed us exactly what type of state we live in.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Trudeau, they're going to go full jackboot emergency normalization because, what were they practicing at the World Economic Forum the year before COVID was, Event 201, respiratory thing. So they preview what's coming next year as they organize in front of us and practice their misresponses to the chaos that they know about in advance. So, they've been foreshadowing cyber attack for so long that they're just practicing martial law so it doesn't feel so foreign when they finally have to crack it out. You know what I mean? It's just bizarre. I mean, they can let the Gardner Expressway be totally taken over by a mob of Palestinians, and you know what, I'm on their team, but the way that I read the article about the Alberta one was they're blocking it, they're causing accidents. They're probably not blocking it. I think it was a side of the road thing, and maybe you had to slow down for a few seconds, but I don't think it was hold hands across the road like the normal people do when everyone's okay with it on the Gardner goddamn Expressway. If you've ever been there, if one lane is shut down, it's a nightmare for 20 square miles of traffic. So yeah, weird double standard world.
Yeah, it's interesting for me, I started seeing this actually with Trump. I said to my wife the other day, I said, when it came to kind of a general awakening, I said the media hate for Trump was what opened my eyes, and then what happened with COVID got me out of bed, and I was pretty much blue pill dormant prior to that, and it was a kind of a slow awakening up to COVID. But you see how the media will report things like that. And I remember when we had that Coots blockade, our premier at the time, who was Jason Kenney, was talking about how people were trying to swerve and hit RCMP officers and all the violence and all the scariness. And it was completely fabricated, but it's almost like a retraction at that point doesn't even matter because once it's out there and everybody runs with it,
Yeah, I figured like when the tyranny happened with police, I thought unions would help. I thought that like a bunch, if you had thousands of officers that are in a union together, they can stand up to the politically appointed superior officers they have. Because you expect it from the superior officers. If you've been promoted by way of ideology, which Trudeau government has been shown to be ravenously ideological in who they promote. They've got 6 of 12 Supreme Court or 9? How many do we have? 9? I think we have 9 Supreme Court justices. 6 of them have been appointed by the Trudeau regime, which is why no one should be surprised when they say, no, it shouldn't be a woman. Let's just call it a thing with a vulva. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's really how ideologically poisoned the judiciary is and how fast it can get poisoned. Trudeau's just at breakneck speed. They're doing all they can. When our chess pieces aren't under our own control, foreign guys will be throwing our queen away, like ridding our whole major economy and resource sector. Think of it, all it takes for China to stop a pipeline being built is like $70,000 for some tribal chief in that area to set up a blockade and declare that this is the land from the treaty peoples of, and stop an entire, pipeline that could cause us to be resource independent and not be totally overpaying foreign owners of our politicians. Like, how does no one understand this is the natural progression of things?
We're too busy cutting our dicks off and killing ourselves over here, right? Literally. Yeah.
But like that shows that people, like, on one side, I have pity for people and I'm like, you know what, everything is falling apart. There's a lot of, guys that don't get to see their kids, or kids might be being brainwashed by a mother, no fury like a woman, porn, talking smack about the husband. Like, that's a horrible life, to be working for all that money, not being able to protect your child, especially going through COVID. Imagine being a mother or a father that doesn't have their children with them and they can see what's happening and they're like, don't do it. And they won't be listened to, and the powerlessness of all that. Like, there's been some horrible things that just everyday people have been having to go through. And it really disgusts me when I go on TikTok to see the trauma Olympics, because really it's just people showing their trauma and holding it up, and grown men that I have to talk to on TikTok. I'm like, stop. You are over 35. You're not allowed to say, I have ADHD. That just means you haven't done enough practice at controlling your impulses. Sit still. Try reading a book. Go paragraph by paragraph and congratulate yourself with a cookie every time you keep your attention. But this is something you can practice. People are really underestimating the power of the brain and trading in that free life for a diagnosis world. That's the devil's temptation. Is you don't need to aspire to be part of society. We can get society to slow down for you. All you got to do is tap out. You just got to tell us you're not capable of doing it. And then we'll help you blame society. Right. And so that's the devil's promise. And lots of people go in with it because it's easy. It's like, what? Yeah, fuck everyone. Yeah, they did design this society to disenfranchise me. Like, that's a really convenient thing that they're handing people. And in the old days, it was you better be worthy of this society. You better be tough enough, gentlemanly enough, chivalrous enough. But that depends on having good leaders, right? You got to have a society where you respect your world leader. Like, I see them laughing about being sent into oh God, my dog's barking. Just about being sent into Russia. And it's like, we're not going to be doing any fighting. Are you kidding me? We're millennials. And it's like, yeah, of course they're not going to do anything because they have no respect. They've been taught. That's the catch-22 of being a tyrant who teaches your country to hate itself. They're not going to be motivated to fight for anything. They're going to be in a diagnosis culture where it's like, are you kidding me? I've got a note that says I don't even need to go to class this year. You think I'm going to a war? And it's that diagnosis mania, and it's a trauma scale because white people especially aren't included in the formal. If you're a straight white woman, you're not on the privilege scale. So how do you get on there? You cite a trauma, you embellish a memory from your past, and you say, oh my God. And then this happened. In my lived experience, it charges people up around you that also believe this ideology. It's the virtue fanning. It's like, yes, tell us. And it was a man. Oh, it was a man. And they'll celebrate the hatred of things together. And they think they're being virtuous. It's weird. I don't know. It's getting late over here. I came on early because I was on Toronto time thinking that this. So I've had way too much time on my hands.
A lot of time to think. It's all good. Before we get way ahead of ourselves, let's introduce the audience. Most of the people that watch this are probably familiar with who you are, have at least seen you or heard one of your videos. Could you maybe just give a quick little bio? Who are you? How'd you get into this crazy space? And kind of what? Yeah, just who are you? What do you think? What? Tell us about you.
Yeah, it's I've got a dog barking that's going to wake up my 3 children and have my wife breathing down my neck here because, she's had a long day with her kids. But I came from a background of just working in audiovisual, normal, everyday guy, living my life, squandering my youth, trying to play in a band whose best gig was opening for the band Default, if you've even heard of them. And then I got into doing sound and lights for corporate events, and it just started turning into a career for myself. And I was talking to coworkers when COVID hit, and I was noticing that I was spending like an hour a day talking to 2 or 3 people that would gather, and they were utterly psyoped. And I said, why am I wasting my time on these people who roll their eyes and go, oh, Trump, let me guess, Alex Jones addict over here, right? And no matter, I'd be wasting time putting it into these people. And I'd say, well, I'm just going to use the internet and I'll rant on my way to work, get my thoughts out for the day. And I set a metric of if more than 50 people watch, I'll consider that worth doing. I mean, you're just saying 2 minutes of truth to people. How much effort does that take? Do you know what I mean? So it's like, I can do that. And therapeutically, I'll be like, at least I'm saying something. The normal is alive somewhere, because it's certainly not alive at my work, you know? And that was in Toronto. The guys out here that I work with are really good. But in the early, and I still love all those guys that I disagreed with at my old work. But as soon as the jab came, I'm like, I'm the only one, aren't I? And I looked around, there was like 40 people that worked at my company. And they're like, yeah, we're all getting it. We're all 30 years old and want to travel and go do audiovisual in Chicago and San Diego next month. And I'm like, okay, well, it's you know, it's an experiment, and you guys are, I can't fault you for rolling the dice. I know you've been tortured and had your freedom taken away. And I actually had a guy on a crew, because we were doing hybrid events in a studio. So we would be like, it would be like a Zoom call, but all jazzed up for Home Depot to do their cross province annual meeting. But we have to be in COVID time. So 2021 was like the studio time. And so I was producing with like, saying, okay, we're going live on camera 1. You've got to get the 2 Zoom calls up on screen because they're about to go to Sheila in accounting. And we were doing all this. And the guy that operates the Zoom machines, I won't name names here, but the guy had, he was a super nice guy, by the way. And he had, I knew he'd been injected. I knew everyone I talked to. I tried to stop them all, but they said clearly that they were on a path towards getting these products. And I said, okay, that's all. I've said my piece. Now I'm done. Go do what you want. And then this guy is like behind me, and we're in the studio. I'm just going over the cue sheet going, okay, what happens after they throw to the CEO as we run this video, and going through that. And I hear boom, boom behind me. And the guy fell through the table with his head flat onto the ground. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so ready for this moment, because I've seen it happening online. And I'm like, maybe this is part of the psyop, but no, it's happening in real life to people around me. And so I help this guy up. I'm holding him in my arms, and his eyes are literally, ooh, and he's moaning, doing these low moans. And then suddenly his eyes just come to and look right at me. I'm like, bro, hey, you're here. That's great. And he just goes, oh yeah, I know. What? And he starts looking at me like, why are you holding me? What, are you gay?
Just has some seizure or something.
Yeah, dude. And so I stand in the hallway with him after, and we're waiting for the ambulance, and we called off. It was like a rehearsal day, like the day before show day. And so it wasn't a big deal to call everything off. And I'm waiting for him for the ambulance, and he's an outside contractor dude. And so he doesn't know that I'm, you know, anti-vax 1000. And so I just go to him, I'm like, yeah, man, I don't know. I'm going next week, because it was right at a time where our government was saying, what's the best one to get for your next dose? Anyone. Mix and match. Yeah. We don't care. It's a frontier science, okay? When they shot a monkey into space, he could do anything he wanted. We weren't telling him what not to do. And so I just tell him, I'm like, hey, bro, which ones did you get? And he's like, oh, my first one was Pfizer. My second one was AstraZeneca. And I'm like, that's why you're booming on the table behind me, isn't it? You know what I mean? And it was so like, when the ambulance guy showed up, he'd seen this a million times before. He's like, what, you feel okay? Yeah, I feel okay. Head back inside, right? Because it couldn't be this experiment. It was weird, man. It was weird. And it was right before I was leaving forever. And I like my bosses. So I told them, I'm like, look, I know that this is going to be mandated. And you guys gave me a job here a couple of years ago when it wasn't a busy season. So they could have waited me out and said, you know what, come back in, you know, the fall when we're actually doing shows again. And so they were good guys to me. And I said, okay, I don't want to go into like, I'm digging my heels in with lawfare. I will fight this to the bone, right? I just took my loss and I said, I'll go work it, you know, anywhere, Burger King, anywhere that, you know, will accept an unvaccinated person. But everyone did it across Canada. And then I called for employment insurance. And I'm like, hey, not really familiar with this process. So what happens here? Like, oh, if you haven't been vaccinated, you don't get that. I'm like, I figured that. Don't you think that's a little wrong? Don't you think this is insane what's going on right now? And they're like, yeah, well, it's, you know, they've deemed it safe. So what are we going to do? I'm like, yeah, you're right.
yeah. What are you going to do? Oh, well, fuck me, right?
Right.
Yeah, man. Geez. Yeah. You know, I've been thinking, and I actually read a post on, I keep wanting to call it Twitter, not X, but you know, I'm trying to not dead name it anymore, but I saw a post on X and it was talking about, you know, the planes falling out of the sky, the people booming on the table, as you said. The one I think about all the time is doing these long stretches of drive in Alberta, is like these truck drivers going up and down. I'm like, how many of these that I see on the side of the road have been somebody that had a coincidence at the wheel and careened off the road and hit somebody else? Like, how many? I'm just going to have to be extra alert just to make sure someone doesn't come in and sideswipe me and my family off the road. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I'm so sorry that you just made me think about that now. Now I'm going to be watching every time. Like, please don't be a booster child. You know. Oh man, but yeah, you're right.
You commented when you're introducing yourself.
What are you, Sons of Anarchy? What's going on with your fingers there? Are you a biker? Are you a cocaine addict? What am I dealing with here? Are you a trafficker?
all of the above. All of the above. You talking about the tattoos?
Yeah. When I see a guy with finger tattoos, I'm like, yeah, he gets real. This guy gets real. Okay, cool.
It says Muay Thai.
Executive security. What the hell does that mean? That means like Lear jets and CEOs of companies that,
CEOs of companies. So I was in Ontario doing executive security. That capped off my security career. I was bouncer for a long time, then security manager at those places. And then when I had my first kid, I was like, okay, well, I got to get out of bouncing. I don't want to, no offense to anybody out there that's a professional doing it. I just didn't want to be the 40-year-old bouncer. It just wasn't going to be my life. And so I reached out to a guy I do photography as well. And at the time I was a bit of a hobbyist, and a guy reached out to me actually that was having his friend's daughter was getting baptized or something. He's like, hey man, can you come do a gig for these guys? You know, he's a good guy. He's got a baptism, needs a photographer. So I went to their house, shot them. Guy was a cool guy. He ends up owning a security company. So we just stayed in touch because it was a security company that I had previously worked for as a security guard. And when I had my kid, I reached out to him. I said, hey, I got to get out of bouncing. I'm having a kid. Do you have anything for me? And so they gave me a supervisory position. They went to a management position there for some condo in downtown Toronto. And then it was when I was looking for jobs just before I got that job that I had applied to this executive security role. It was on a close protection team for an executive. And I got hired at this condo supervisor manager thing. And so I didn't think about it again. And then it was a couple months down the road. I got that call. Hey, do you want to come be on the team here? Or rather, do you want to come for an interview? And I thought, sure, I have nothing to lose. So I went and seemed pretty cool. A team of small guys, in Toronto. And like you said, like driving the guy around to his jet or, monitoring the cameras and all the different properties that they have and coordinating with other security companies and access control and, patrols and alarm response and shit like that. Nothing super major. And of course, the reason we had a CP team was mostly because of protesters and stuff that were protested against his company. And so we were just kind of kept around for just in case.
Right on.
Long story short.
Yeah, security is exciting. You're going to be, you're there to encounter conflict and, a lot of real men like conflict. I certainly do. Like my wife, when we would be walking by a pub at like last call in my 20s, and there was a fight brewing outside a random pub that we weren't even attending, she'd just be like, don't. And I'm like, I have to go. There's a fight over there. And I would just run over to it, try and establish who were good guys and bad guys, and just be like, oh, fuck you. You totally shouldn't have done that. Yeah, it was a wild time. I
don't know why you reminded me of this, but as a doorman, about the last place I worked at, of course, you're the front line. You're the front door. You got to make sure you keep the shit out. You keep the refuse out of the bar because once it's in the bar, it's your problem. So if you're outside of the bar, you're not my problem. So this big guy. Now I'm only 5'11", and at the time I'm probably like $180, $175. And this guy, and I'm standing on a step that's maybe like 6-7 inches.
Yeah.
And this guy comes right up to me. He's nose to nose with me, but he's on the sidewalk, and he's like kingpin. He's like as wide as he is tall. And he just looks like he's trouble, and he looks drunk. And so I'm not going to let this guy in. And he comes right up to me, nose to nose, to get past me. And I'm like, sorry, brother, you can't come in tonight. Why? Well, it looks like you've had maybe a little bit too much. You should try the next place. And then he just got really irate, and he's looking at me, and he looks in my eye, and he says, do you want to get fucking punched in the face? And I said, no, I really don't want to be punched in the face. And I was just waiting for it. And he just looks at me for a second, and then he backs away and walks. And I felt like a superhero. And then I look behind me, and I see my coworker glaring over my shoulder with like the look of death. And I realized it's because there was two of us there. I didn't realize that. So yeah, it deflated my ego balloon.
Don't ever tell your ego that.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? I'll always go with the best explanation.
Of course.
I've got a photogenic memory. I remember it as better than it was.
That's right. You have been on Alex Jones recently, yes?
No, that would be an exaggeration. But
Oh, okay.
I think Harrison Smith is equally legendary to Alex Jones.
Okay.
But I'm on
Okay.
I've
Okay.
been on his network. I've received an
Yes. Yeah.
email from him while I was on the show that said, "You're doing great. Can you mention fluvoxamine?" And that was in one of the earlier ones. And I don't like. I'd been out of work. I don't check my emails. And then it's like 2 weeks later, I'm like, oh, fuck, he messaged me. Thank you so much. You're rad. Sorry. And then it's like that email does not exist anymore.
Okay. So.
Oh, this guy.
What?
Down to
This
brass
just.
tacks. Yeah, I know.
This
I
just.
was responding to it too. I love this.
Yeah. This just came out today. Like what? An hour ago. An hour ago. And
Yeah.
Alex Jones. And from the outside looking in, like to be fair, not knowing the dynamics from some guy. What's tab am I on here? Here we go. To be fair. From the outside looking in, this guy's like a miles better than Trudeau, and he probably is miles better than Trudeau. But like, it's like, do you want to die by fire or die by drowning? I don't, that's kind of the question I have. So, which is the most peaceful kind of death? So I don't know. I don't think that Pierre Poilievre is the guy, and that's what I wanted to talk to you about because you're a PPC guy, and I'm a PPC guy.
By the way, I don't want to be. I am a reflection of. The more bad energy I saw generated towards PPC, the more convinced I became. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't want to be. I thought it was an easy layup that everyone would be on board with. We rarely even mention it. We just wear a shirt every now and then where it's like, of course, what else would we be? What are you talking about? There's nothing else. Are you crazy? You're going to work with them again? Right? I feel like Canada is a Jeffrey Dahmer victim who escaped. And Jeffrey had only eaten their leg. And then they escaped and they said, okay, I'm going out to get a prosthetic leg. And they want to go to Jeffrey Dahmer's prosthetic leg shop. And it's like, don't do that. That's so stupid. He just ate your leg. Why? He's going to kill you if you go in there. And they just won't learn. So we have to pass our test and learn that establishment politics is going to literally and figuratively be the death of us. And if we don't learn that, then it's not worth having a Canada. What are you talking about? Like, he's the best we can do. Churchill had a thing. It was, it's not good enough that we do our best. We must succeed in doing what's necessary. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter what your favorite thing to do is right now. Right now, we need to actually save the boat. There's a giant hole in the boat. There's a giant trust gap. There's giant glitches in the matrix that things should make sense that don't make sense. Pierre is going to be completely unwilling to acknowledge the mRNA genocide that befell Canada because he profited from it. I mean, the entire class of politicians, part of what kept them silent was an extreme carrot and extreme stick policy. So before the extreme stick, there was extreme carrots. There was, you'll have first rights to the packaging company that's going to print all the arrows that go on the ground and tell you to stay 6 feet apart. That's your that's your devil's deal in, right?
That's Doug Ford, right?
Right. Yeah. How much money is Pierre worth right now? How much? These people do not have transparent books, and we don't care. Like the PSYOP, the mass form psychosis makes us not care about debt. No one ever mentions a number on our news. Like try and find CBC where it's like, if spending doesn't get out of control, then our GDP won't even equal the interest payments on our debt in 2 years. Like they never tell you the truth because they just want you to think money's just a number and we are the West. So we can just keep kicking it down the road. It's not a big deal, bro. We'll make it up overnight, and as long as it's not mentioned to these people through the authorities that they've outsourced their thinking to, then it'll never occur to them. And it's like, okay, so this is just, I understand that we've reached a point now where things will probably collapse. I hope they don't. I really hope that they don't. But if they do, we want to be in a group of people that are like-minded and not going to get betrayed. Trust will mean everything. It's not good enough. That's why you should be off drugs and you should be off alcohol in these times. As soon as I started realizing in 2020 that this was a massive PSYOP, because I was a victim of the PSYOP. I was a zombie. I was like paying $300 for 10 masks that didn't show up in February 2020. Do you know what I mean? Like I was totally on board. I was lysoling the shit. I was in San Diego doing a conference setting up shows for a conference in San Diego when that was the only part of the map, along with somewhere in North California that had COVID. So the whole time I was messaging my work going, we need masks for all the techs, man. You can't be flying techs across without masks. And they're like, dude, it's the flu is worse than it. So it was like the reverse. All the zombies reverse spots with us. And when we were like fooled early, we, they were like, oh, but chill out, man. It's the fucking flu. I'm like, I wish I listened to you, because you've gotten a lot wronger since then. And we blew our credibility. All my loved ones that I warned, I was going crazy about the China thing, going, you don't get it. They're fucking coughing blood. Like that you can't make that shit up. Like, I was such an idiot. Like, you just don't think like that these people are doing a massive psyop. And so I blew my credibility with a lot of my friends and family. And then they're like, oh, well, if you were wrong about that, then why would you be wrong about mRNA then, right? You could be wrong again, right? You could be wrong again. They're going to take my job, so you better be wrong. And so that was tragic. I really hated that happened. But I had to let the evidence of reality change my thinking. And I never wanted to outsource my thinking. I thought, oh my God, at the beginning of COVID, everyone's going to become like vaccine experts. Everyone's going to become like medication experts, because that's what we'll be dealing with. And people will know. But the PSYOP said, no, don't. We've got a top doctor that's very optimistic that the medicine will work. We're very optimistic. And so they were so super vague about what it is that they're injecting us with. They didn't want to get into details. Meanwhile, the detractors are like, okay, here's your cell. Here's your killer lymphocyte. When that bonds with this, and you finally, and the alleles they're going into great detail, the detractors. So you quickly get this image that like the people who doubt this know everything about it. And the people that are on board are just hopeful. We're optimistic. They're never specific. They're just vague about, vaccines are good. We're moving at the speed of science. You can call me science if you want. And then you can say, trust the science. Like Fauci was bizarre. So it really was. I noticed it when I saw hydroxychloroquine being demonized. And I'd been reading like these little studies, like searching Lancet and New England Journal of Medicine for like, as soon as I'd hear hydroxychloroquine, I'd search the database for any studies that were being done on it. And there was like South Korea study of 150 people. It's working great. And then because they weren't doing big studies, it was like in the heat of the moment, you're doing what you can at your hospital. You know what I mean? And they were doing their proper Hippocratic oath where you explore treatments that were previously approved for other things because they have the benefit of a long safety profile. Do you know what I mean? Like they were developed for other things, so they've gone through the testing. So why aren't we doing treatment? And that was forbidden, as Peter McCullough talked about. But just noticing that hydroxychloroquine, there were these good studies, then all of a sudden one shows up. So I learned that hydroxychloroquine, what is it, lupus, arthritis, been used for 60 years. It's the elderly people, millions, hundreds of millions are using it, and it's working great, and it's very safe. And then a study comes out that says, no, major study, 100,000 patients, meta study. We've collected various studies, and we've put all the knowledge together from that, and we've discovered that hydroxychloroquine is causing heart QT prolongation or a greater distance between heartbeats. And I had asked my dad not to get or I asked him to get hydroxychloroquine from his doctor, and his doctor said no because it causes heart QT prolongation. I'm like, oh my God, she's going from this debunked study. So this study, it turns out a week later, they say that we are retracting the study that says hydroxychloroquine is causing this damage. Turns out it's by a fake doctor from Chicago. What comes from Chicago? Fake professions do. I won't get into any more specifics, but fake people come out of that place. And so he's a fake doctor from Chicago named Saipan Desai. And him and another doctor, Mandeep Mehra and Amit Patel, these Indian doctors, took one for the team, and they did a fake study with a fake data company called Surgisphere. The company shut its doors right after retracting the study. He moved on to, malpractice suits. He's killed people. There's been surgeries where people are still looking for him to sue him for, operating on a, artery and severing shit because he's not a doctor. So unlike the movie Catch Me If You Can with Leonardo DiCaprio, there's no Tom Hanks figure chasing this guy. There's probably like 10 Tom Hanks figures protecting him because he did what they needed to do, which was stop trials of hydroxychloroquine, right? So that's all the study needed to do. The initial study will get 30 million views, but the retraction will only get 1 million. So they have a 30-to-1 incentive to always lie and not give a shit. No one
That's
pays
right.
attention to the retraction. We control the Wizard of Oz machine. We just won't let that news get out.
Yeah, yo, and the things change. Like news happens so fast here that like by tomorrow we'll already forget about the carbon tax. You know.
Exactly, right? Like I don't know. It's if you want to talk about mRNA, I'm good to do it, but I'm more just in awe that the same level of psychosis that we all understood, people that now support CPC were with us when CPC abandoned us, when there was no one in our court except Max and PPC.
Mhm.
And they were there. And now they're misremembering history. They're honestly falling for this. It's the most like, oh my God. I hope that there's no like Scrooge moment where the ghost of the future brings them to look at themselves and go, oh my God, look what you forgot. Look at who you support now, bro. It's the ultimate
Mhm,
Stockholm
mhm.
syndrome. And it's delusional. And I'm just I would be fine with it. I've had very low expectations of people for a long time. And I hate to sound so cynical and depressing. I'm really not. I'm just trying to be a good cause narcissist angle about it, where if times are dark and you get it and you have a good cause, you can be a shiny diamond in that dark time. And
Mm.
other people will want to be like that. They'll want to have a good cause in their life and they'll want to be happier, because you can't be happy if you don't know which way to go. And these
Mm.
people are guiding their lives, waiting for a destination to be provided to them by Agent Smith within the Matrix. And they know deep down that they're lying to themselves and that they'll be betrayed at the end of it, but they're just waiting to get something, not realizing your life is the building. The bands look back as their fondest memories of when we were all in that shoddy van, man, before
Mm.
the fucking Jets. That was when it really was good, right? Cliff Burton was back there. That was really the best times. And so, it's if you don't have a good cause and you're not building something, you won't have the energy required to get you through a chaos period. And we're in a despair operation where they're trying to make everyone depressed and willing to give in. It's that scene in Braveheart where they just want them to yell, I quit, or whatever the fuck that priest wanted him to say, and he yells freedom instead. PPC is yelling freedom, and no one here is going to be giving in, drinking the poison that hot French princess brings us. No, that's not happening.
A lot of people complain, like, of course, as you've pointed out a number of times on your X feed, that the CPC bots and the trolls and everything are all out in force, pleb and the rest of them, that just love the CPC. And some of them might even admit that I don't really like Pierre, but what can you do? Or he's the best we got, or some people are fawning over him. But a lot of people will criticize Max, and here's what I've learned in my life is that people are people, and people, including myself, fuck up. We make mistakes. We're not perfect. And, and sometimes we do things that other people don't like. But you tell me somebody else that, at least in the political sphere, that is making that stand. And I think whether it's Max or not, or whether it's the PPC or not, the idea behind what they're doing, the populist idea, I think is that way forward. And so far on the federal stage, they seem to be the only ones doing it. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, there's going to be objections to any human being because we're all human beings. So you can marshal bad objections to someone and repeat them enough, and people that don't want that, it satisfies something they want to be true. They want to take the path of least resistance. So they're eager to believe bad objections. Like Max is a Frenchman. He's the most atypical Frenchman ever. He wants to end equalization payments. He would be the only politician the West could vote for in a federal system that would let them keep all of their resource money and not have to give it to Quebec or the Atlantic provinces. So it really is these weird, bizarre objections that would happen with anyone. There's no one better. When I want to continue this conversation, I want to go, who in your imagination are you imagining that would be the best leader and not have passed all the tests that Max has passed? I understand that he used to be part of an establishment party, but he left them. He actually tried to reform it. It did not work. And he said, okay, well, I'm not going to be part of this. That's great. You can actually speak for yourself. He has told his donor class that I'm not going to be on board with what you guys want, which it's all these people are for sale. He lost the leadership race. He could have had it all. He could have had the maximum grift. He could have been Pierre Poilievre making tens of millions of dollars if he just said that he will fix dairy prices for the dairy cartel. But because he said no, they mass registered in the final round of voting, and Andrew Scheer beat out Max Bernier by cheating, and it's legit cheating. So he had it all, and he chose to take the right path. And that's kind of a microcosm for where we are right now. He recognized we need populism. He's the first one to build the boat and recognize the issue. We should all support him. We had a referendum on whether to keep him as leader, and I think it was over 95% voted in favor of keeping him on. I'd be in favor of having a leadership race just to see the people who come out of the woodwork that they think would challenge Max, because I think it would be a throttling. I think it would be like Max in the 90s winning leadership if he ran against anyone. But yeah, it's the simplest test you can pass. You can see people's reactions to the chaotic events that have happened, and no one has scored higher in the post-COVID era. COVID changed everything. That is the dinosaur that ended the Jurassic era and started whatever the hell came after the Jurassic era. Okay, so we're in that era now. There's no more raptors. There's no more things with the fans that spit at fat guys. There is just mammals, shrews, basic furry creatures now. And so don't talk about those past times and those paradigms of how long it takes a party to do whatnot. We're in a time of intense crisis where the only people that are leading on a course out of the crisis are PPC. So it should be overnight we're at 50%. If everyone woke up and realizes the easiest war of your life, where you don't need to hold a musket and run into double grape shot and turn into a pink mist in the Civil War, you just need to wear a purple shirt and say, I support freedom of my country. And I will agree to not be divided into these groups that they want to keep us sliced into and at each other's throats. There's a way through it. It's nationalism. The banner to do that in is populism. We've had many movements, but they haven't coalesced under one guiding principle or force. And that's what PPC has done. But there's also a matrix move to go, keep your politics out of here, man. That's the most counterintuitive thing ever. All evidence points to connecting political parties with political movements. That's exactly what the Dutch farmers did. They went from nothing to majority overnight by doing it. So when BJ Dichter is telling you to keep politics out of it, that's probably your cue to get politics into it, because he is a matrix agent after all.
I do agree with you. I got a funny story for you about BJ Dichter, not him specifically, but I remember
every story about BJ Dichter is funny to me, so go on.
It's not about him specifically, but related to him. So I was watching, of course, as everybody else was, watching daily the video would feed in the conferences and the whatever, and the photos and the whatever coming out of Ottawa during the convoy. And I remember BJ and I think Tamara was there. There was just kind of a panel of the spokespeople were being interviewed by the media. Yep. And this was the day where he just came out and started talking about Bitcoin all day. And I was like, this is,
that was the day it ended. That was the day everyone left his side, but go on.
That seems so to left field, but he had this guy come on, his Bitcoin expert, come and talk, right? I don't know if you remember that guy.
Yeah. Like Bullcoin or something. Yeah. I remember.
Well, this guy's name was Nick, and he was a nice enough guy. So in 2019, I flew out to Oregon. But I took it was a roundabout way for the cheap ticket. So it was like fly to LA from Toronto, and then from Toronto from LA go up to Oregon. Cool. So this guy sits beside me on my flight to LA, and I see him walking around in bare feet on the plane. And I'm a minimalist. I wear barefoot shoes. Like, I'm into that shit. And so I was like, hey, so I started talking to him, and he owns this barefoot shoe store in Ottawa called the Foot Collective. And anyways, nice enough guy, into the barefoot lifestyle. I was all about it. I bought my shoes from him for a while. And I'm looking at this crypto meeting, and I'm like, holy shit, that's the fucking guy. So BJ Dichter's crypto guy, randomly, we're 3 years, I guess, before the convoy. We're sitting beside each other on the plane having a conversation about barefoot shoes.
Inserted into your life, bro. He's
right? Mr. Anderson.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy. So what's the verdict on him? You know him? What's his deal?
All I know, I knew him from the brief chat we had on the flight, which was and I do those. I don't like to talk to people who saw me on the planes, but because I'm an anti-social media.
Wait. He was on the plane, and there were empty seats where he could have chosen to remain.
No. We were sitting,
fellow barefooter.
No, we were sitting beside each other, and
two barefooters beside each other. That's not happening organically. That's right. The Matrix.
That's right. Yeah, no, he passed me one of the things from the flight attendant, like my meal or whatever, and so it was kind of obliged to have a little bit of friendly conversation. Yeah. And then I saw him get up and start walking around with his bare feet. Looked at with the design on his shirt, which indicated he was into barefoot stuff, and I was like, oh, the only person that I know other than me that I can talk to this about. So this is great, like you said, right? It's very rare to have two beside each other.
Did he try
But
and
then,
sell you on Bitcoin? Because they all become insufferable once they are
yeah,
on.
that's
Like,
right.
hey, did you know it's going up? You should buy.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm on.
No. This was pre-Bitcoin. It was all about fucking toes and bare feet. But then he went to LA. I went on to Oregon and never thought about him again until I saw him sitting in that meeting with BJ Dichter. I was like, oh my God, I've been buying my shoes from this guy. I've been buying in, not in Bitcoin, by the way, just in case you're wondering.
Yeah, no, there's Bitcoin something, dude. There was a time where I think some people thought I was going to become a big deal or something. Like for some reason, I was getting a little attention of like a potential big deal. Little did they know I would never become a big deal, and they wasted their energy. Ha ha. But the Bitcoin guys came out of the woodwork at me, bro. And that, like, I did a couple of videos in Ottawa where I'm like, hey, get your Bitcoin wallets. Like, I'm taking shots on net, like they had a public net and some hockey. And it was the day after I'd had a debate with BJ because it's, oh, dude, I didn't want to talk to trucker leadership or BJ. I knew they were government operatives, but I didn't want to reveal it because everyone was so addicted to the notion that they were heroes. And I was like, who wants to climb that mountain? We're here to do a job. We're here to get mandates lifted. Who wants an emotional sideshow of me calling them out? I didn't want it. But I also wasn't going to Ottawa until I saw BJ Dichter say, oh, and Randy Hillier, stay the hell out of here with your politics. And then I saw like Fleury backing that up, Theo Fleury. I'm like, Theo, not you. Hey, too, Brutus. And so I'm like, this guy's a fucking saboteur, because if there's one thing I know, it's that Randy's the fucking real deal. And if you want to blacken your soul, then you would slander that man during COVID, because he's the only elected official we had. Other than Sloan was on there too, but I have my doubts about Sloan being, pure of heart as well. But he was at least good on that. On COVID, Sloan was good. But that's our only elected officials. And they're supporting the cause. And he created no more lockdowns before these guys were even friggin' a speck of ovum in their mother's womb ovary tube. And he just shit on him. And he shit on Max. And that's a Matrix glitch to me. And I loved Chris Sky, bro. And then he shits on Max. And he shits on Randy. And he leaves Derek Sloan alone. I'm like, Sloan alone? That's interesting.
I've never met Derek Sloan. I just know that I left and in fairness, never having met him or spoken with him and judging from the outside here, I just didn't like how he was running in one spot, lost, goes out to Alberta to start something new, and then goes back. Like, it's just, you're not really standing for anything.
I think he's an alien lizard boy suit, and I don't even believe in the Anunnaki or any of that. So I'm speaking just ironically here. But I think he's a, soul for sale, and I'm not talking Red Hot Chili Peppers. I think he went on tour with Max and Randy and sapped up all that cred of freedom guy cred. And I know I shouldn't invoke that, because then other people are going to say, well, that's what Max did. He took from Chris Sky. He took from, and I know that we can go down that path, but he's going around with them, and it would make perfect sense for him to join on to PPC and give us a huge boost, especially when his cred was really high. He was getting a hell of a lot of attention for like being the only MP to not vote with the Conservatives to agree to, let Patty Hadjdu, the graphic designer who's in charge of Health Canada, suddenly decide when COVID's over. So the elections are suspended. That was their fucking motion, or the Bloc motion, Bloc Québécois, that they backed up. And Derek Sloan wouldn't vote for it. And so he was getting a lot of good press. And he should have used that to be like, I'm going with PPC. But these people have their egos played. There are BJ Dichters out there that keep the narrative on track by sowing deception and being Machiavellian behind the scenes. They'll put people into your life path that have some deep knowledge about Max Bernier that'll sour you on him. Do you know what the type of stuff I'm talking about? These people are like shit-talking mean girls from Lindsay Lohanville, and they craft narratives. They get ahead of the game and they try and talk shit. So that might have been happening to Sloan, but then Mark Friesen messages me one day that he's starting a rival populist party called True North. And True North is going to be made up of disgruntled PPCers who got mad at us for HQ not calling them back in time in 2019. We're talking about manic narcissists. We're talking about Frank Vaughn. We're talking about, I think it was one of the girls who went to work for Rebel Tamara. Everyone's named Tamara nowadays. Whatever happened to being Tammy, ladies? You were all Tammy 1 minute, and then we grow up and you want us to call you Tamara? Get a hold of yourself. I don't know. But, but let's talk about Tamara's. No, I don't.
Before we got into Tamara's, I do want to give a tip of the hat. During the CPC leadership race, I'm all out of leadership races. Leadership races all in the brain. I did photography for a provincial leadership race, during which I met all the candidates of the federal CPC leadership race, and right now the Alberta NDP, which on paper doesn't actually technically exist. It's just kind of basically a branch of or an arm of the federal NDP. They're undergoing their own leadership race. So leadership races all day. But anyways, it was Calgary Stampede 2022. I met Pierre. I met Jean Charest. I met Leslie Lewis. And I met Roman Baber. And I liked Roman. Very soft-spoken, and I don't line up with him on some things. But at least when it came to the magical snake bite mRNA experiment, he was against that. And I do remember one time he made a motion that all the MPs take a pay cut during the time, because all your constituents are under lockdowns, they can't work. Then you should be able to feel that too. And he got laughed at from everybody. And so I'll give him respect for that for sure.
Yep. I've met Roman at an event once where someone I met at the convoy, she wants to be like the hostess. She's very cool and she does it well. And she knows people. She's now heading up, what is it? It's something about children wellness, something to do with mRNA, protecting kids from experiments, that type of jazz. But she's lovely. And she was saying, hey, do you want to come over? Roman Baber's coming to the house, Baber, whatever the hell you pronounce his name. And there's, he wants to meet some of the, Mississauga shakers and movers and potential donors. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to tell him I'm a PPC supporter and that he should join PPC. She's like, okay, fine. Tell him that. Fair play to her. She supports PPC. She's not buying bullshit. It's very tempting world. She could go live in CPC world and be, the guy from the Matrix eating steak going, you know what? Ignorance is bliss. I get a reward for that. She could easily live a very happy life dining with megastars, but she's choosing PPC, so I respect her for that. But Roman's going around the table being very diligent, writing down people, like each one was getting like a little bit of time to say what they wanted. And it gets to me and I'm like, hey bro, I just, I'm impressed with the stuff you do. I think that a great move would be symbolically for you to go on board with PPC if you're thinking federal and not go near the CPC party. I don't know if you're aware how awful they are and how disqualified they are. And I used all my time to just trash them and go, you should come with us because I like you, and so he gave his thing. He's like, well, it's just not the time. I think we can work. We have to work with what we have. Everyone's, making a pragmatic post hoc rationalization of something they want to achieve. Right. So I got his goals, but I'm just not impressed. I'm Shania Twain. That don't impress me much, that you're not getting on board with a true populist party. It's just waiting there. It's like a little test. It's an easy filter test to keep my life simple and go, okay, you're interested in the champagne class of corporate welfare and dining with Bombardier. We give them $500 million. The next day they cut half their staff. We wonder why we're subsidizing these companies when they just fire people the next day. It's all a racket. So if you want to take out the racket, you've got to get all new bodies in there who are only beholden to the people. So when people are like, do you know Max is making $100 grand? I'm like, good. I don't want him to be worried that he's not making enough, that he needs to sit down with Bombardier. I certainly want people to fund politicians, not, Lockheed Martin or, some Boeing. I want human beings to do it because it's utterly poison. Populism is just the renewal of a rotted system. All human institutions corrupt over time. Everyone should have a realistic expectation that democracy is the worst form of government except all others that have been tried. Churchill once again. It's like, yes, of course it's bad, guys. Of course nothing will ever be perfect. Your life will be a struggle. It'll be 30 years to undo the damage that's been done within our government. Even if PPC were to magically overnight win a majority, we would still be facing about 20 years of working with a rotted establishment edifice that is trying to sabotage everything we want to do rather than help us do our jobs as elected MPs. They'll be trying to sabotage us because if we succeed, then we'll find them guilty of stuff that they did before we got here. That's how a bureaucracy works. That's why bureaucracies are so dangerous and protect themselves. So it's going to be like, if people really cared, if MAGA really had their strategic game together, and I love them, they're the best people on earth. They're the only reason we have a chance is MAGA America. But you wouldn't be hyper analyzing Trump. Oh, could Trump be more Mr. Manhattan and get us out of this somehow? No. The general's already got his 9 out of 10 marks. Okay. We take away the 10 out of 10 because of his warp speed. He enjoys that project being successful too much, right? But he's done his job in the general category. What can we do in the means in the army category? Consider the army, the GOP. They're utterly rotted. You got to replace them all. That's one task. Then all the appointed positions need to be fired on day one, or they will sabotage whoever wins that is a MAGA Republican. So you need to be like doing war games of like testing out who's going to be the best press secretary, chief of staff. What do they do day to day? Let's do FOIA requests to see what the day-to-day life of a chief of staff for the press secretary does, so we can have all those positions ready to go. And you could be having public, forums and auditions, and there can be a Simon Cowell who's like, no, you will not be the, National Security Council liaison. There's thousands of positions that will be trying to sabotage you if you ever do win. So if we were really serious, we would be practicing for the moment where we actually have a chance to change things, because everyone that's there now can't change it, because that would reveal their own guilt in massive crimes.
You just alluded to that too, in the sense that it's that cult of personality. You have your Max, you have your Pierre, you have your Trudeau, who it doesn't really matter, because it's the tip of the iceberg, right? That bureaucracy. You said those thousands of jobs. The government is huge. Here we are arguing over the apple-eating Pierre. I don't want to say it out loud about Trudeau, but we know things about him.
Yeah.
And then all the other leaders, like, we're just getting about, oh, Pierre's got his sick burns, Max will never, but it almost doesn't matter, because the monstrosity. I had this conversation yesterday with my colleague. I said, politicians are like the flesh on the Terminator's body. Like, you see and you interface with Arnold Schwarzenegger, but that's not what you're dealing with. What you're dealing with is all the machinery underneath that you don't see. And you could take off the skin, you could change it to look entirely different, but that machine is still the same. I mean, it's still going to kill you.
Love it. That's a perfect analogy. See, and it's going to become, you're going to mention it a lot, just like I do with the Matrix. And it fits, man. That's the world we live in. These people are not serving the interests of the people. We're at maximum rot. The 4 stages of a civilization is, I think, barbarism, civilization, decadence, collapse. So we're right between decadence and collapse. And if it is
fourth quarter for sure,
right? But this all had to happen. No one was going to change their mind on their own. Every person you talk to that doesn't understand the basic reality, that have that visceral reaction, like they're going to laugh or vomit if you say Trump's name. It's like, oh, it's too late. Collapse has to happen, so you guys understand that the people that have fooled you into thinking they're the good guys because they read a nice, smoothly written script and act the way a president should act has really overridden all of your critical thinking to understand the content of what they're saying or the implications. They just see the platitudes of like, how are you against ending all poverty? That's how deep they're thinking. A lot of people's critical thinking is as deep as a puddle, and we need to drill down. We need to make it at least an in-ground pool. You
and I share something in common, that is we spent basically the bulk of our lives in Ontario, Toronto area. And
where were you? Toronto area? Are you still in that area?
I was born I'm in Alberta now. I'm in northern Alberta now, but I was born in Toronto, like Etobicoke, North York. Actually, I was born in North York, lived in Etobicoke, moved out to Waterdown, which is, I describe Waterdown for anyone that doesn't know. If Hamilton or Burlington were butt cheeks, Waterdown is like the triangle at the top of the thong. It's kind of location wise.
No one has heard of you guys. I have been all over that area and no one has ever even said your name.
Right. Yeah.
Man, that's
so sad. But so there's Waterdown, and then then moved back in 2012 to Toronto, to the beaches, to the east side.
Oh, so
Then
you're a rich boy. I get it.
No, definitely not a rich boy. And then moved back to, then went to Dufferin and Eglinton. And then from Dufferin and Eglinton to Vaughan, just a couple of blocks away to Vaughan and Oakwood. And then from Vaughan, and that was where I moved.
How do you even enjoy life? That's the worst places you're living. I'm like, ew, congestion. Everyone hates you.
Yeah.
No one looks at you. They just
shootings in the back in the back alleyway all the time. Like they had we had an after hours club. That was it. Like we backed on
back to Waterdown, where no one knows where you are, because
that's right.
that was the best spot. You have the best memories of being in the butt cheek of Burlington, Hamilton, because that's a much better spot than anywhere near the city. That's
right. So then after that, we moved out to Aurora, north there, and then from Aurora out to Edmonton to.
Did you get seasons passes at Canada's Wonderland when you were living up there?
Never got seasons passes.
I did. I used to love those, man. Those were great. You could drink as much pop as you want doing the blind taste challenge to decide whether it's Pepsi or Coke you're drinking.
But the testers get a little bit lazy though, but they don't really switch it up. They just kind of like, you're in a line and you're watching, they put the cups up. Oh, that's Pepsi, that's Coke. Put it down. They ask the next person. The same. Yeah. It's the same. So
no, we stopped even talking. We just nod at each other. Like, I'm just here to drink pop. You know, I told you, 80 cups ago how I felt about both of these.
That was the pastime as a kid with my buddy. We'd in Waterdown, we'd go to the IGA grocery store. The bakery would have free cookies, so we'd go and get cookies. Then we go to Jumbo Video and get free popcorn. Then we go to Harvey's and get like a water for free. And anything we could do
that those cookies weren't really free. Your mother just wanted to be Oliver Twist and have you steal for her. And she told you that. And that whenever they'd talk to you, you'd be like, oh my God, he took it? I don't believe it.
You're of the age, you'll remember too. I was thinking about this today, about kids walking out and about by themselves. I remember being, I don't exaggerate. I want to say somewhere between 8 and 10, but probably younger than that, having a handwritten note and going to the store to get cigarettes for my mom, which is,
really?
You ever do that? Yeah.
Well, you remember where you can scum areas.
That's right.
I lived in a quiet suburb that was, it was South Ajax by the lake, and it was great down there. It's like a little biodome. As soon as you go north of the 401, it's goddamn Mogadishu now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a good place back then. Humans have like a 500-foot radar where they know they're safe. And as soon as you get to that one plaza, you're like, oh God, the wind's blowing a little different over here.
Yeah.
And you get your spider sense and you're like, I'm sprinting across. Like I know when I'm in an area of Scarborough where I'm like, looking around, we're like, yeah, we're so gonna get jumped. Like anyone that sees, I knew probably 4 people from Scarborough. All of them have stories about having a gun pulled on them to take their money. That's not a coincidence. And the thing about Scarborough kids, they love life. They don't want to leave. It's like living in Mos Eisley Spaceport.
It's represent. They love it.
Like laser fights in the canteen. I don't know.
It's like I don't know. It's like the suffering Olympics, right? The shittier part of the city you live in, the more like it gives you that street.
Yeah, they have shitty city pride, and shitty city pride is weird. I don't like it. But I also don't like skydiving. I'm like, whoa, I'm not risking that. Are you fucked? No way. I'll go to one of those places where they got the fan and it just blows. It's totally safe. I'll float if I really want to, but I don't really want to.
In Toronto, there's the Don Mills, Eglinton, kind of Leaside. I think so. Leaside is the area.
Okay.
And that security company I mentioned that I got hired on and became their mobile supervisor and then a manager of a condo. When I first started working for them, they had me outside of an apartment in Leaside, and it's this apartment building, and it was a crime scene. It was that Bruce MacArthur, the gay guy serial killer that put the people's bodies in planter boxes. So the police were there still like getting forensics out of the apartment.
Other gay dudes, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And we took the rap for that. Gay people held us hostage going, we're being killed. And the implication was it was straight society killing them. I'm like, no. This is torrid gay serial killer guy. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
So get this. So that's his building. Serial killer. He's in jail. So I'm at his building. The same street, the next kind of set of buildings down. There's these building structures, like 3 buildings together, 2 buildings together, so on down. And we did security for a lot of those buildings on that street. So there's one building, and then just down the road, a stone's throw, same road. Like we're talking about the difference between the building 85 and building 45. So like right next to each other.
A bar where he would prey on his victims.
The building where the Danforth shooter lived. If you remember the guy that shot into a Cafe Dimitri, yeah,
shot women, didn't he?
I don't know who he shot. I remember him shooting
women,
into.
I think he was a Muslim targeting women who were being immodest in his view.
Not only that, his brother was the largest carfentanil with that large carfentanil bust. The largest carfentanil bust in Canada. So that's all on the
sound like Hunter Biden's, like a protected group of terrorists on demand.
They live on the same street in Toronto. I don't get that. So that's Leaside for you.
Reason 1 million to not live in Toronto ever. I tell all my friends, I'm like, look, I used to tell you just to come to Nova Scotia because I'm selfish and narcissistic and just want you guys to all follow me out here. But now I'm just saying, get away from the GTA. I don't care if you go to Manitoba. I don't care if you go, just straight north. If you go live in Bobby Orr's hometown or something, I don't care. But just don't be living in the GTA anymore. Because every time I fly back, I feel like it's so much more claustrophobic. There's way more manageable of an amount of people in Nova Scotia where I live. I'm driving like an hour outside the city to go to work and come home. And the community level I'm in, and even Halifax is a small enough city where you must look in people's eyes and interact with them because you might know them. You might see them again. There is some penalty to be paid if you're disrespectful. And when numbers get high enough, people lose that common respect for each other because they know they can hide in a mass of zebras and not be noticed again. And the odds of you running into them are so small that they treat you in a lesser concentric circle of social courtesy, let's say. So everyone's just, no one looks at you. They just look at the ground and they're in a rush and no one engages with anyone. You're all just little automaton drones in a constant reminder that you're a bunch of fucking ants walking around. So in smaller settings, it's a much more healthy environment. And I only knew that by returning to Toronto after a year out here to see my parents and being like, oh God, like I got to listen to Police album Synchronicity 2 and packed into shiny metal boxes. He was singing about this.
Oh, for real. When we moved out to Edmonton from Ontario, and not a fan of Edmonton. It was much better than Toronto, but
it's baby hell. It's baby hell.
Then we came up to Valley View, where we are now. It's a town of less than 1,900 people. The closest traffic light, man, 125 kilometers to the closest traffic light. It is bliss. And I'm really, I miss my parents dearly. They're back in, it's actually my dad. It was his 70th birthday yesterday, and it's their 50th anniversary, wedding anniversary in the summer. So we're going to plan the family trip back now that we can actually fly again. Going to plan the family trip back to see them in the summer for their anniversary. And they're 45, like I said, they're in that little triangle between the two butt cheeks of Hamilton and Burlington. So it's not exactly Toronto, but I can't tell you how much I'm shredded.
The two
watered down.
Watered down?
Watered down, yeah. Yeah, like the old legend of how it got its name was when they were doing the christening or the naming of the town. They do, like when they do old ships, they'd like smash the hull with some wine or whatever, champagne or whatever the case is. But the legend goes that they just filled the bottle with water, and the guy's speech was taking too long, so someone just shouted, "Yes, throw the water down!" And there you go. The rest is history.
Wow, I love it. Everyone needs a coffee table book about the hometown they come from.
That you got that right.
You got to know your facts.
Yeah, we got Smoky Hollow there. Smoky Hollow's got a waterfall. By the way, Hamilton, Ontario, for everyone that doesn't know, this is the waterfall capital of the world. They're not big and splendorous, but there's more in Waterdown than anywhere else. And Smoky Hollow is in Waterdown, which is kind of in Hamilton now. Hamilton absorbed it. And it got its name when they had like the little mills down there. There was a fire and all the buildings and stuff like that burned up. And then the kind of, what do you call it? Not the coulee, but the little, why can't I think, the little river valley there was just full of smoke. And so the Smoky Hollow, there you go.
Yeah, right on. Smoky Hollow, bring the water down. Two birds with one stone. Let's just call that your town now.
You want another one? I got one more. Three things come in threes, right?
Go.
So they have this bar hotel called the American House. The bar is called Stonewalls. And what happened is a truck was driving on the Highway 5 Dundas Street right beside it. and crashed into the wall. And so they had to repair it with cobblestone walls. So it's stone walls after the truck crash. So there's 3 watered down legends for you. Now you're much wiser than you were.
We're going to be taking a massive detour when we go to Niagara Falls. We're going to be like, don't get off the QEW. We're going to Waterdown.
It's actually, if you're going to Niagara Falls, it's not that much. Yeah, it's not that far. It's not that far of a detour actually. If you're going to Niagara, so you can make it.
I only plan on returning to Ontario in a Black Hawk helicopter to airlift my parents up. That's the
for real.
So I'm trying to stop and buy Waterdown. It's way too on the other side of the city. I do like, when I think of Ontario, the only place that I like is my hometown little area, for obvious reasons that everyone should like the hometown area they grew up in. And then Niagara Falls. I liked it because we would go there for stags. We would go there for family shit. We would go there. It was just this magical, cheesy place. It's cheesy as hell, but I liked it. There was an element of Las Vegas, poor man's Las Vegas to it. And crackhead, crazy. Like you turn down one street.
Yeah.
This is a meth dystopia nightmare. But I like that you can go another block and it's like, hey, there's a giant King Kong hanging from that building. And he's making noises when you walk by.
That is Niagara Falls to a T. That is exactly Niagara Falls.
And, it's just very interesting stuff there. There's a lot of, I like Canadian history of Sir Isaac Brock. You've got Queenston Heights there. You've got, Fort Amherstburg is around there. Lots of forts. I love it. I'm a nerd. I'm a history nerd. And Niagara Falls is rich in history for people that want to celebrate the very few victories Canada has had. Well, I guess we'd particularly be Britain, Canada, but we were kind of Canada at the time.
We're big in our dick measuring with the falls too, because we always have to mention that the Horseshoe Falls are the bigger ones, and they're on the Canadian side. Those American falls over there.
Yeah, well, we fought a goddamn war to keep it that way, right? And it was really we didn't really rely on our prowess as fighters more so than the Americans lost their fervor to fight when they left their country. They were like, I signed up for this militia, but the militia states that I can turn tail and walk out of here if we're in foreign country. And they took advantage of that. And Brock was cool, though. And that's a positive history that Canada can celebrate about the British being friends with the Indigenous. Tecumseh had gone across all of North America to assemble all the natives that were mad at America because Indiana was, they caused a massacre. They were starting to kill people to develop a state of Indiana. And so all these natives came to the side of the Brits. And Tecumseh wanted to just fight Americans. He wanted an excuse to get into battle. They only mustered like 400 warriors. There wasn't that many that he got from all across North America to come fight under him. But he teamed up with Sir Isaac Brock. Isaac Brock had about 2,000-3,000 guys with him. And they whooped ass together. And they mainly preyed on the fact that they could terrify the Americans by, when they do the false march where they march between a crossing and then go out of view and then keep marching again to make their numbers appear to be larger. They did this and screaming as loud as they could. The Brits were learning the Indian calls and war cries to scare the shit out of the Americans, because the Americans knew that if they lost a fight with the natives, that there would be no quarter and they would be scalped and they would be burned alive, and there were all kinds of bad stuff happens to you where the Geneva Convention had not been assembled yet. So they were really scared of the fighters, and Tecumseh liked Brock because Brock was desperate for a fight. He was jealous that he was missing all the action with Napoleon overseas. He was a really magical character that teamed up with an Indigenous figure, and we could celebrate a positive history that would unite us. Instead, we're focused on the residential schools and the burial sites, you fucker. That's like all anyone ever wants to talk about, and it's a shame.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna see if I can. You can keep talking. I gotta go find this thing and download it, and it's gonna. This one picture is probably gonna get me canceled, but since you're talking about it, I'm gonna load it up here.
Well, anyway, Sir Isaac Brock was on his way to meet Tecumseh at Fort Amherstburg, and then when they finally met up, Brock said, "We're going to invade America. We're going to cross and we're going to attack Fort Detroit." And Tecumseh was thrilled, and he went out and showed Brock to his warriors, and he held his hand up and he said, "This is a man." And so it was really a strong bond.
Talk about the residential schools. I made that as a.
What is this? I don't get your joke. I'm not involved in this joke.
Oh, okay. So So at the residential schools, when they did the scanning of the ground, when they did the radar or whatever, they found a bunch of
Oh,
rocks.
cool. That's
Yeah, yeah,
good. That's
yeah,
awesome. I'm
yeah. So
glad I know.
that's
But and a geode is a piece of a rock?
yeah, it's a type of rock. Yeah.
Oh, you're too nerdy to understand that too many people like me exist. You need to dumb it down for us. Every rock under the ground matters, and that rolls
Okay.
right off the tongue. It's very small font on a t-shirt,
That's
very
right.
small
That's right.
font.
That's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Definitely Times New Roman there. Yeah, geode, of course, sounds kind of like child. So I was trying.
I
I was
like it.
trying.
Oh, dude,
Yeah.
I come up with that's much better than many of my ideas. My best slogan that I came up with was probably for a chalkboard at a pub, and that was "Take a picture, it'll last longer." And that was probably my best work.
That's that's pretty great.
It's good.
So you're talking about we talk about populism, we talk about nationalism, and kind of the value of nationalism. Question for you is: you said at the beginning you're hopeful. You're hopeful that this doesn't collapse, but you kind of find your community and be prepared anyways. What do you think, if you were to paint out a realistic picture of how you think this is going to go the next decade in Canada? How does Canada do? And what do you think about the notion of provinces separating, or kind of a balkanization, a fracturing and a rejoining of certain, like a West entity, maybe
Yeah.
Maritimes? Like how does that look to you? And what do you think is the best play for us?
History will repeat itself because not enough has been done to stop it from repeating itself. So what will happen is we'll fall into a mini dark age, chaos flux period, I call it. And America will save the world as it always does, because when they try and go through their dark age, it'll only happen in blue states. And people will get to witness the comparison of a life in misery versus a life in prosperity where civilization is open. So once that happens, there will be massive unrest in the blue states. They'll rejoin the red states, and then all these ideologies will fall, and people will get tired of misery. We'll get misery fatigue. We've already been through it. We've already been through a lot, and people should give themselves credit for getting through a lot already. And take the bonuses from it. It's made you a strong person. I couldn't imagine my life before COVID. I felt like before COVID, I was a purposeless, jaded vampire who didn't appreciate much and was a cringy atheist, lacking purpose. And now that good and evil is clearly defined, I find it refreshing. And I find that there's a new, it's easy. It's easy to be motivated to live when you know that evil's real. Once you know evil's real, it's like, fuck. Even if this isn't like heaven and earth shit, it could be a simulation that you only pass if you do the right thing under intense pressure. So I don't want to fail my test. Neither should anyone else. That's why I wish PPC was a layup for everyone and we could stop talking about it. I would be so much more critical of Max if we'd shot that layup and PPC was at 40%. I would be the one going, easy now, guys. Let's be sure. Let's keep in check with Maxi here. But as long as everyone is so overly against him that it makes no sense at all, it forces me into a position of defending him, where people will then invert that because they're motivated to. They want to simplify things and posture confidence by going, oh, it's the PPC cult of Max. Now, I'm sorry. Max is a great guy who's passed all his tests. But it's pretty clear that I'm not obsessed with Max or think like it's his innate charisma that's driving this. I do think he's charismatic. I do think he's perfect for purpose because he's got a very long fuse. He's very patient. He's in for the long game. He's not prone to overreact. A lot of good qualities exist with him, and he does have a moral compass, and he is open to outside knowledge. He was living in a bubble when he worked for the Matrix. When Mark Friesen educated him about the UN, I asked Mark, I'm like, how did he feel when you were telling him all this shit? He's like, oh my God, I didn't know. Tell me more. Like, he was hungry to know about it and willing to admit that he was part of this delusion. And if you're not hungry to know, then we know that you're still not with us. Do you know what I mean? If you want us to shut up, if you want us to stop talking, and just kind of accept okay, let's agree to disagree on this. We know you're not with us and you're not willing to understand it. But Max is passing all of his tests. So the bot armies were out for him in 2019 when we were a 1% threat. We are the only thing that is standing in their way and coronating Pierre is if Canada suddenly understands that they're in the slaughterhouse and they're approaching the curtain, and it might happen. If enough people start believing that PPC is possible, we could crack 10%. And if we crack 10%, vote split will go into overdrive, where it'll be a serious argument. And I welcome it. I'm like, yes, it's a vote split. Thank God we're here. Now we can talk to you. Now that we're at this fork in the road, how about we don't choose evil? Yes, if a vote split exists, that's cause for concern. So good news is you're allowed to leave the evil party. Like, that's the best problem ever faced. And so people should be embracing the 10% mark. And then once 10% is broken and the dam breaks, it's a runaway MAGA. MAGA happened overnight. No one knew that there was going to be endless throngs of people filling up stadiums because they were celebrating combining the people and the general and Sun Tzu, realizing they can have a good cause that can finally affect change in their life, right? So that's a magical feeling that's euphoric and it energizes people. So once we realize that energy is actually there and we get over the massive psyop to just never think it's possible, right? There's all these objections are designed to make you can get on board and nothing in your life changes. What, you spent $35 and bought a 5-year membership, or you spent $20 and you bought a t-shirt. That's all you need to do. We're not asking, but everyone's convinced, like, no, until I'm an expert in how the MLAs are run, I'm not on board with this. That's the fucking psyop. It's really weird. And people that want power, I'm like, just beware of people who want power. I don't want power. I just want to say the truth, move on with my life. If anyone ever pays me, I want it to be for me doing something. For me, like, I offered a service where I'm reporting on people in Ottawa. I'm doing an online web stream show where, sure, if you want to rumble rant me, go ahead. I find TikTok to be the most free enterprise where I can just show up, make people laugh, and they can give you a coin there and then. There's no like committal to it. You know what I mean? Where it's like, be my Patreon monthly. I'm like, I don't know what we're going to be doing next month. I don't want you to do that. I don't know. I need to have another cigarette made of marijuana.
Yeah. Do it up. I don't mind. The have you ever thought? And I thought, and I'll put on my tinfoil hat here, which has become a very good fitting, well-worn hat. You think of like how retarded Trudeau is and all the things that he's doing, and Biden, and the same. Like how much insanity there is. And it's on full display. It's not even hidden.
Yep.
And it makes me think sometimes that you got like the puppet master back here with the both leaders, and with Trudeau and Pierre, at least, it's like, we're going to make you hate this one so much that this one gets in with the ease and with a super majority. And then anything you try to push, you're not going to be able to stop because you gave them the super majority. And I fear that could actually be reality.
Oh, for sure. That is the reality. That's the demonstrable reality, is that the stamp of approval from the WEF out of Klaus Schwab's own mouth is we've penetrated both the cabinets. He didn't just say Trudeau's cabinet. Like, he was bragging about controlling the whole thing. And then you look to confirm that, and the confirming evidence is, yep, Michelle Rampol, WEF. Yep, Pierre Poilievre, WEF, until April 2021, where he says, hey, how did my name accidentally appear on here? Can you please take it down? And then everyone said, oh, it was an accident. It was probably an email accident. Like, whatever, guys, whatever you want to believe, guys. It's cute. And then there's tons of other people that are on that WEF website as the young global leaders. These people are ideologically committed to the Great Reset. I'm sorry that's disqualifying, but it is. We reach these moments where we're not supposed to continue until we sort this out. But people keep continuing. And I'm like, okay, it's just nothing's going to make sense in a few months to you. And then you're going to have an argument with me, and you're going to have to find some side reason why, I just want attention. That's why I'm arguing with you. Like, they have such motivated reasoning. And if anytime you want to find out someone that has a bad argument or they're lying and Decepticons, they don't want to go talk about anything. They want to find a reason to dismiss their opponent and go, oh, please, that guy? Yeah. Like, dude, I hate BJ Dichter. I think he's a government operative. I would talk to him for 24 hours a day, though. You know what I mean? Where he's like, oh, he's just a grifter. He wants fame. No, I don't want fame. I don't want fame. I could really try hard to get famous. I want to tell the truth and get the message out there, but I'm more than happy. Like I told you, man, I'm getting above 50 views. That's like walking along the highway picking up garbage. There's a
Mhm.
good enough dopamine release for me just doing that to make it worthwhile, you know? And the only way I'll go into overdrive, although I'm tempted to start doing more because I pay $10 a month for Rumble Live, and I'm like, I'm never fucking live. What am I doing? But I also have that little part of me that's like, oh, you're gonna start doing Rumble Lives, man. You're gonna start, but there's not enough time. You get home, my kids are playing, Warcraft on this computer, and I'm like, sitting with the wife for 40 minutes before we start the bedtime routine, and then go back to work. And I'm happy to work in the real world, but if they take real world work from me again, I will be right back to online poor man's crowdering anywhere. You know what I mean?
Poor man's crowdering.
Well, that's what I've been called for so long. I'm like, I like Crowder. I agree with him, but I have rarely, I don't know. I don't like the way of, I like him being funny reacting to news, but it feels like a joke setup of comedians, of like a stand-up
Right.
format where
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
I don't like the stand-upiness of it, where it feels like, Greg Gutfield, and they've all made their punchlines to storylines ahead of the show.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're not, I like guys that are more organically reacting to it, and they make like 4 medium jokes instead of 2 out there jokes that they've rehearsed. You know what I mean? I'd rather have 4 medium jokes that were unrehearsed than the 2 polished jokes because you worked on the material before we start. And I'm not trying to shit on them, but you know what I mean. So I'm not.
I do know what you mean. Yeah.
Crowder. We just have similar talking patterns. If anything, it's Will Ferrell. It's all like, these are the people I will speak like, especially on TikTok, where I tell people to shut their mouths a lot. I'm like, I can just hear Will Ferrell going, "Shut your mouth! I drive a Dodge Stratus." But TikTok's
we were talking about Discount Crowder. Someone, not Discount Crowder, Tucker. He's the big one. I got to see him in Edmonton when he came to Alberta, and I saw video footage of him from Calgary. And what I found really fascinating was there was obviously a prepared speech, or I don't know what his notes look like and how he structures it, what kind of outline he uses, but there was a lot of overlap in the different speeches. But being in Edmonton, there was also a lot of live reacting to things that the audience was shouting out or saying or whatever. And it just felt very natural, unrehearsed, organic, but he clearly prepared that speech. So it was just a fantastic example of like just a master, a master of that, like just being able to orate and be able to, again, like you said, in the moment, live react.
as if you're not reading it.
Yeah. And it seemed like it's really natural. And then someone out there throws something to you, just like a comic, right? Doing your crowd work. Being able to work off that and then kind of take it in a different direction. It was just an absolute masterclass. That was an absolute masterclass.
I've thought if I ever ran for office, which I don't want to do, but I have a thing that I tell PPCers. If you tell me that you have no one running, then just tell me you're signing up to run. You know what I mean? I'm sure like Daniel Tyree would rather have a candidate on the ballot than no one at all. I sure would. I'd vote for a rubber boot. I'd vote for a dead muskrat with a PPC
purple shirt,
right? With a purple shirt on. Dead muskrat with a purple shirt. I'm voting for it, even as a protest vote. But it's, I don't know. It's up to us to volunteer for these positions. But if I was, I would never read. I would propose 3 points that I'd write down on a piece of paper to make sure I at least get there, to keep me, because I know I can go on a tangent wave and long forget what my original point was. I would want 3 anchors on a piece of paper of the 3 points, or maybe 5. You know what I mean? The point form is the format for me, because reading, it would feel so fucking weird. It would feel so weird to me. I don't know how people could be like that, locked into something they want to say to do a speech like that. But anyways, you like reading, so you would read it. I get it.
Oh, I don't know how much I like reading.
I used to like reading. Social media killed my reading, and I hate it. I don't like that I'm an addict to scrolling Twitter and TikTok. And, I wish that I would get back to concentrating on a book. I've read a couple of books. I read one that JFK recommended, The Unspeakable, which was amazing. The facts about the Kennedy assassination that we now have basically 100% confirmed are groundbreaking and shocking. And then I read The Great Reset by Alex Jones, which is awesome. Explains the Trilateral Commission really, really well. So that's 2 books, but they're not really huge books. But it used to be more. I used to enjoy reading. I had the full dyslexia. I was the 51% high school kid that just wanted to listen to music, don't bug me. I hate your school. I hate being here. And when I look at a word problem in math, I would just see blah, 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 blah. I wouldn't be able to put it together. I guess you call that dyslexia. What I call it is I'm so not interested that I'm not retaining this. And so I have a lot of sympathy for people. Actually, I don't, because I hope I would never get sympathy for that and someone to kick my ass earlier, because I was in a class where one of our classes, me and all my friends, and we had the easygoing teacher that let us do anything. The other class was Mr. Sudu. Mr. Sudu is like an Indian Trinidadi guy, and he was just short of whipping people with rulers. Like, he was that close, and he was fucking strict. And when you practice doing rotary when you're in elementary school, and we're in the grade 7 class here, or grade 8, we'd go to his class for geography. We'd get a little taste of this guy. And he would, at any moment, if he saw you speaking, he'd go, "Stand up, child. Tell me, the westerly winds blow over the mountains, causing a rain shadow area." And he would just like put you as drill sergeant, and we'd be terrified of him. But all the kids who were in his class were honor roll in high school. All the kids who were in our class were 51%. Like, it literally was that night and day. And the only difference was, some kids had Mr. Sudu. Some kids had a fucking iron fist going, "You're going to fucking study, or it's going to get borderline violent in this class."
Discipline could go a long way.
Right? So
hey,
I wish I had that.
Knock over my chair here. For people like you that have trouble reading, I got a picture book for you.
I saw that picture. I want one of those.
Yeah, so we got it's basically just a picture book. This is computer can't focus or shit, but that's Coots. Yeah, so it's just basically all the photos from Milk River and Coots. So you can check that out on Amazon, Fortis and Libre. I'm returning this one because
it's affordable. I'll buy it. I have a budget of about $16 Canadian for that type of purchase at the moment. That's what I would put my disposable income at. But if it's more than that, then we'll have to multiply that by a month for each. If it's $32, it's going to be 2 months away from me buying it.
Gotcha. I see. Yeah.
But yeah, I love picture books. As I told you, I have reading autism. I got over it though, and you know what got me over it? Smoking weed when I was 24. Like, I didn't smoke weed till I was like 24. And then I'm 24 and I'm doing a bit of audiovisual work, traveling a bit, and needing to kill time in airports. And I bought the 9/11 Commission report, the fucking Robert Mueller Matrix side of the events. I loved it though. And I still had reading autism. And then I smoked a J, and I'd read half the book. I was like, I'm just being honest. There's a lot of people who read books just to say they read a book and they absorbed like 20% of it. Okay. And then there's mega liars who are the most pathetic people on earth, are the ones who listen to a book and then go around saying they read that book. Okay, your
audiobook is not reading a book.
We're laughing at you if you admit that to us, because unless you're sitting in a dark room in the lotus position, you are not absorbing any of that book. You're thinking about the tea towel that you got to go get off the floor before that coffee hits it, and you're leaving the realm of what you're absorbing, and you're encountering real life. You're mowing the lawn. You're making sure you don't hit a tennis ball instead of reading everything salient about that last paragraph they read to you. So these people are liars. We should watch out for them, and we should not trust them. But when I smoked a J and I was halfway through this 9/11 Commission report, really hadn't absorbed a thing. I just wanted to tell myself I was reading words, right? I started being so interested that I would be like, wait a sec, Hamza El Fattah and Muhammad, and I'm going through these names going, who the fuck, how did they get here? So I'd read back like 3 to find out their story. I'm like, oh, they were bin Laden's cousins who were in that mosque in San Diego. But who the fuck kept them in their apartment? I'd read back. So I was literally reading backwards through the book that I'd thought I'd read. And the absorption was getting addictive. And then after that, man, it was pretty much everything I read. As long as you're interested, right? As long as you're following the interest gland, it will let you absorb everything you're reading. And for me, oh yeah, And then I became the cringiest atheist ever, reading biblical scholarship books from atheist writers. Oh God, I could prove the mythological existence of Jesus, and it was so awful. I look back on those days and I go, what was I doing? Like, I had nothing to replace the pillar I was cracking at, you know?
Yeah. On that note, you said a little bit ago that you were a cringy atheist. So if
I
I
was
can
the
ask
best of them, though. Like, I say cringy as a derogatory term, but I was their king.
Okay. So are you a slightly less cringy atheist now? Have you found a faith? I'm curious about this because I'm on a bit of a journey myself. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
I want to believe.
Hmm.
And I think I believe in a beautiful mythical tale that is using imagery and allegory about the tale of Christ. And I believe that everyone that was believing in religions at that time thought of Christ the way I do, where they assumed, like, if you were a Roman and you happen to be in Greece and you were used to praying to Mars, you could go to the temple of Ares if you were in Greece. You know what I mean? They were all equivalent because the people at the time said, we see the seven heavens, the seven moving objects, and we recognize those as other realms that we tell mythical stories about, right? And things are happening up there. And when you get into the Old Testament, they're like saying that Adam is buried under the moon, and they're going to these different heaven layers. So they're talking about things that are not here on earth. But somewhere along the line, they found it easier to get adherents to their religions if the stories were real. Oh, no. We didn't see this in a vision up in the seven heavens. This really happened. And if you read the Gospels as an actual history, they don't make as much sense as if you read them as a myth where all the names have meanings. It's written in poetic structure where if there's a boy in white at the end, there's a boy in white in the beginning. Each thing is marked clearly. It mimics the miracles of Moses precisely. All the same number of miracles that Moses did, Jesus did. You know, the Nile turns to blood, Jesus turns water to wine. Everything can be found to perfectly line up to indicate a perfectly written myth that is an interpretation of ultimate meta reality for people that I can get on board with. An explanation of good and evil as good as any. And I noticed that the important thing in good and evil times is that someone has a mechanism of recognizing it. It's not so important how you get to the end result. If you're into Deepak Chopra spirit crystals, let's say, I used to find that a bit kooky. If you are asking me what my astrological sign is, I found that a bit kooky. But these people really understood what was happening faster than a lot of people. So I give them credit because I know them by their fruits, and they are very brave people that do stand against evil. So no matter what got you to the dance, I'm happy you got here. And that religion falls into two categories of veracity and utility. And though I may doubt the veracity of literal New Testament, I think that the utility of it is absolutely crucial to us. And that if I am to believe that something is to happen after we go, that is what I think happens. Yeah, I think it is a valid explanation. I think that the book of Revelation is a very good allegorical allegory, metaphor, microcosm for exactly what's happening to us right now. Like, it is very mark of the lamb. Are you doing the right thing? Are you taking the mark of the beast? Are you, like, it's creepy how much it mirrors this. And I'm not looking for patterns. I'm just saying it is a little poetic the way it lines up. And the people I want to be around, the people that I feel safest around, that understand that we need to have families, that we need to defer to things that are higher than our government and hold life sacred. Christians have gotten there first. They hold that ground. They're the only reason we're here and the only reason we have a chance. So while I may say I'm an agnostic atheist, I don't want any more people to be like me because we don't make the world better. We make the world into communist nightmares where people replace God with government, and they put their egos in charge, and they're all Dunning-Krugers who think that they can do it better than Lenin or Stalin did, and this time it'll be better. They just fundamentally don't understand how stupid they are. So it's really bizarre.
I like what you said about veracity and I guess not versus utility, but veracity and utility. Yeah, I really like that. I think I'm a big fan of integral theory. It's a philosophy which basically says nobody's smart enough to be 100% wrong. And I think that you have like what you have Indian gods you have elephant gods in India, and then you have like native, like wolf spirits and stuff over here in North America, because that's the environments they grew up in. And you have your tales and your traditions and your myths, and in Judea you're going to have all the Jewish traditions and stuff like that, and so on, Roman traditions, Greek traditions, whatever the case is. And I think what you said is right, and because you can see a lot of, you talked about, there's those other myths that are the same. Like there's Jesus, there's Dionysus, there's Mithras, there's all the overlap. You can say, the virgin birth and the death and resurrection, and you can talk about all the overlap. But I think, like you said, the utility of those stories, and especially as human beings, retaining information through stories and interpreting information through story, I think that there is utility there in pointing us towards the truth. But you're looking at it through your cultural lens, because you can only interpret. If you're going to see God, or you're going to see the truth or the source or whatever, you can only interpret it from where you're at. And so I think that there's a lot of utility in those stories, like you just said, whether or not the specifics are exactly accurate.
Yeah, it's not as important, right? And these people go around TikTok, they get 3,000 people watching them just to go, prove to me God exists, because they're fixated on the veracity, because they know that's an argument that they can win. And I love jumping in there and going, you know what, you're crazy good at science. Now, how many genders are there? And I love taking it there while they think that they're the most scientific people on earth. And I'm like, you're not a scientist at all. You're ideologically led, and you think you can make things equal because you're a narcissist. And you can't accept life for how it is, and I'm ashamed of you. So that's what makes TikTok fun, is you can walk around telling deluded narcissist 20-year-old kids that, hey, I'm an atheist, let me in. And then when I get in, I'm like, but I'm not crazy like you. I don't think there's 50 genders. And when does life begin? Why is that so hard? You guys should, it's just a clump of cells. Well, what point does it become not a clump of cells? You guys are weirdos.
Yeah, exactly. They're very much weirdos, right? Because if you're going to take the entirely materialistic approach, then abortions right up to birth should be okay, right?
They're so unrealistic, though. They're so lost in the clouds. They're like, oh, well, we can grow people in like a fridge in a test tube now, so I don't need to get a girlfriend. Why do I need a girlfriend? Like, I'm like, you're rock bottom, and you think you can talk to other people as if you know the way home. You don't know the way home. You're miserable.
Look, just eat plant-based meat, that man-made meat, for a long time, and watch your body deteriorate. Right?
Yeah, they fall for everything. Atheists are the pawns of tyrants. They fall for everything because it's in the name of the greater good. The tyrants always come and put people in lab coats in front of them to tell them scientifically proven, until you get, what is it, the W-Path files or whatever it is, the transgender people files, where it was exposed that they're not a science at all, that John Money was a psychopath doctor who had one patient, and that patient ended up killing himself. And the patient had a botched circumcision that melted like the tip of his penis or something. And his parents were distraught. And so John Money had finally found the perfect victim, that he told the parents, if we cut off this child's penis and raise it as a girl, that would be the healthiest thing. And identity can trump your biological prison. And the parents were desperate for anything, and they got on board, and the kid was raised as a girl. And John Money was a sick pervert who would bring his brother in with him. So there was another brother to this kid. I think his name was Bruce. And he was brought in, and he would teach him how to do sexy girl dances. And there was a lot of probably inappropriate touching. And from this, because this scientist was a snake oil salesman, most scientists are utterly pathetic people that don't have a lot of social grace. They're not brave. They're bean counters, but they're not used to being brave. It wasn't a prerequisite for being a nerd. So in comes this boisterous guy, and it's already a soft science where you can admit anything as something, if you have enough bravado behind it. And he declares that identity is a real thing, and that it can trump your biology, and we should respect it. And from there, an entire branch of fake science was developed to prove their theories right. And I love debating them. It's the only thing that TikTok would allow you to debate with people. The second I mentioned Trump, General Flynn, anything mRNA, I'd get banned for a week for misinformation. But people would toss you coins on TikTok. So I keep talking about what you want to talk about, how a woman cuts off her femur muscles and forges that into a cock and sews it to her crotch. Sure, I'll talk about that. It's so fucking ridiculous. You want to just let me win all day and just show people how ridiculous you are? Let's go. So I don't know. I don't want to lapse into transgender talk for too long, but
well, it's like it certainly seems to be outside of the friggin' carbon tax topic of the day. Our premier
I
here,
love
Daniel,
people that are protesting it, dude. I really love Canadians that get out there and do something. I'm not one of those guys that's like, your protest means nothing. Fuck off. It's a crown corporation. You're owned by the city of London. Just sit down and do nothing. Fuck. You know,
yeah,
like, I'm not a fan of that. I'm just like, I love those guys too, but it's like, be happy for people that are getting out there and showing that there is a visible resistance to the policies out there.
The black pill is a big problem on our side of things, for sure. It is a big problem. Demoralization.
You're not a man for quitting and living here. Your tits on a bull. You're just here. Stop bragging like you've got some shiny diamond you're going to show us. I want to be with the cringy people that just, love civic nationalism. Oh man, yeah, all races. Don't you know that this is? Yeah, I get what you'd like it to be but I like what it is now, and we should all work with this. And it makes no sense to alienate fucking anyone that is I am a multi-ethnic monoculturalist. We should have one culture. It should be the Canadian culture. People always ask what that is. It's being tough but overly polite. It's being able to get it done and have a street fight and then have beers afterwards. No one ever jumps in. There's no gang beatings. It's utterly despised. You're polite to everyone. We don't accept crackheads and normalize it with safe injection sites. We make asylums great again. Like, that's not culture. That's just what I want. That's my wish list for society is, you want tourists to come to Toronto? How about you don't put safe injection sites right in Yonge and Dundas Square?
Victoria Street?
Have lunatics walking around fucking pissing on people.
Literally.
No.
Literally.
How about you get them help? You can't hit rock bottom. They're like cushiony middle is their strategy for drug addicts. I'm like, when you give cushiony middle to drug addicts, they tend to just evolve their manipulation practices and get good at getting too much methadone and fucking with people. How about while you're going through your shit, you're not in places where we all want to gather and bring our kids? How about fuck you? As soon as you start acting like a lunatic, drug addict, assaulting people, you're not allowed to hang out here. You will go to a boot camp outside of town where you'll live a dry life with the drill sergeant from Full Metal Jacket every morning. And once he's cleared you to rejoin society, you can come back.
If for anybody that doesn't know what Alex is talking about, at Dundas Square, the safe injection site is actually the northeast corner of Dundas Square, of Dundas and Victoria Street. And as I say, I used to work at Shark Club, which was a restaurant in that building there, 10 Dundas East, where the movie theater is, and
really
deal with it all the time. It was called Shark Club. Yeah, Shark Club is actually the same. Shark Club, Moxie's, Chop Steakhouse, Sandman Hotels is all owned by Northland Properties. The same company owns the same guy owns the Dallas Stars, a hockey team, and so they're all that same restaurant family. And so I did security at Shark Club there at Dundas Square when we opened the restaurant. I was actually there the day that they moved out.
It's actually talking shark, because I thought shark meant that you farted and shit came out.
That is accurate, but it's with a K, not a T.
Oh, okay, cool. I was hearing a T there. That's your fault.
Fair enough.
On my S's, and you are pronouncing K's like T's, or at least I heard it that way.
It's the Albertan influence for sure.
Nice. Well, I wish I was out in Alberta. I tried to convince my wife to come out there because I just told her we were living the 2-income life, and she was a nurse, and I said, let's have you home with the kids. I'm up for if a man wants to do it too, but it's way more natural. Women are way better at it. But we made almost the same money. I think she made slightly more. And she wanted to come home with the kids and be a mom. And I'm like, that's so super trad, and I'm super Chad. So let's do that. And it's hard when you're 2-income world. You're having a competition of like who had a harder day, and the kids are getting neglected in some way. In some way, you don't have enough energy to give them the attention they require. And I felt it. Do you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
it's all two income parents. It's not just our situation. It's not natural, guys. That's what I'm saying. Especially when the kids age 1 to 3, there has to be a mom with them or her,
Yeah. I was
or a him with her or him.
I'm not knocking people that have that two income. Like I grew up that way too, and it is what it
Mhm.
is. But we homeschool our kid. Well, we have a 12-year-old, my stepson. He's with his dad in Ontario. Comes to visit several
Cool.
times a year. Got my 5-year-old girl, my 3-year-old boy, and so we homeschool
Nice.
the 5-year-old mostly, and the 3-year-old likes to take part as well. But I thought we just watched them and how bonded they are, how close they are, and they play together. And I thought, holy cow! Like not only if we put them in school would they be apart from us and they'd have some stranger effectively raising them, but they'd also be apart from each other all day. They'd be basically isolated from the family, and that was just the thought of it was heartbreaking.
Yeah, the schools are making it very easy to keep your kids at home because they're perverts. It's like the teachers. Why do the teachers have to be perverts? I don't understand why that's necessary. They don't think right. They're ideological. They've gone nuts. And if you have a good teacher, be thankful. I always have to cover a certain number of topics with teachers and make sure they're not teaching multi-gender theory. I had a conversation early on with my boy's teacher. My oldest boy is the one I'm worried about because he's just reaching the cusp of being a 7-year-old, of reaching these topics that will multi-gender perversion is entering. So I talked to the teacher and I said, you're not teaching this stuff, right? Because if you are, I'd like to keep my kid home any days that you're doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, oh, absolutely not. No, we don't have to. We don't. She's talking about some like discretion that they have. I'm like, good Lord, just let me know who the ones are that I can say, please not that teacher. Please not multi-gender Sally, but when we decided to go one income, I said, well, we've got to live like within an hour of the city for me to do work because I need to do like hotels, corporate gigs, arenas, all that type of shit. And so I'm like, I'll drive up to like an hour and a half, but we're going to have to downsize. We're going to have to live on the cheap. And it was all worth it, man. It was all worth it. Everything is more appreciated now. Before I'd buy everything I wanted at that time and say, we'll always make, the mortgage payment. And now it's like, I'm happy for a $2 pair of used soccer shoes. I'm happy for, everything is sweeter when, and my wife being with the kids all day, I've got my game in order, man. That's the way it was meant to be. She's handling everything here perfectly where I can just go out and focus on work and ranting and fucking, and get home. And it's just magical. I couldn't imagine it any other way. And I encourage people to watch the show Coronation Street just to get used to maybe you have to live in a small little crammed townhome. They all did. There's 6 English people in Manchester living in each tiny little townhome because it's not about the size of your property. It's about one income families, guys. And finding someone and trying to stay with them. I understand how crazy society is. I understand the psyop. I understand Taylor Swift is sending subliminal messages to women telling them to leave their husbands. But it's still a project that you need to hold sacred, which is another reason I love religion. It holds marriage sacred. It's like I've been with my dude. We started early. It was since 2001 I've been with her, bro. So it's possible, but I also never had plans. I was never doubting it. There's a Satan deal being offered to men and women by the internet to say, your perfect match might be out there. Maybe you should consider the person you're with. Are you sure they're not an energy vampire? And all of these things are making people go, yeah, how can I satisfy my happiness and needs and think about the thing? And that's a psyop. It's about your family now, guys. It's about your family now. You're not 21 now. But there's so many people that are like 36, 3 kids deep, thinking, oh, I need to go explore. And I'm just like, what the fuck? You think you're going out there and that you're going to live this fucking life of a beauty queen? You're 36 with 3 kids. You got more baggage than a FedEx 747. I don't know. Those are my hot takes. I just want to start a bunch of controversy because, the algorithms will go up and people are commenting going, I'm fucking fine. Do you know what I left? The abuse I left? I'm like, I'm not talking about you. I'm generalizing. Humans have a way of doing that.
Yeah, no, dude, it's the
I don't
Attack
know
of
where we are
Society is
either. If you're trying to ground this somewhere, I don't know what we're talking about.
no, I'm just gonna talk about that family thing too. You know, I was as a bachelor, and well, I had my first kid when I was she's 20. Was that 28? I was 28 when I had no.
How
Excuse
old are
me.
you now?
I'm 43. She's 5. I was 38.
Right on. We're 1980 boys. All right. Cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right on.
What month are
1980
you?
was a
What
great
month are
year.
you?
I'm October.
Oh, I'm September. So we're only a month apart.
Wow, that's weird. The number one song when I was born was Another One Bites the Dust by Queen.
I don't know what it was when I was
You should have
born.
went to. You lived closer to Canada's Wonderland than me, and that's what I found out at Canada's Wonderland in 1996. So that's your fault.
Yeah, fair enough.
You got it. Now we have Google. You can search it. But yeah, the number one movie was Raging Bull. Number one actor was De Niro. Actress was Sissy Spacek, whoever the hell that is. Yes, I know who it is, but I'm not, going to name any goddamn movies Sissy Spacek is in. But how she was
Carrie, that's a big one, right?
Well, Carrie, never really saw that, dude. I think I saw like the remake of it. People think I'm into movies. I'm like, no, I just mentioned like 3 movies that everyone's seen forever. Like it's The Matrix, it's Lord of the Rings, and I can watch Lord of the Rings again. The first one. The rest of
you're 1980s.
I fatigue with the third, but yeah, I'm 1980s.
You're not just 1980s. You're actually 1980. So I was looking at movies the other day from the kind of my childhood. Have you seen The Boy Who Could Fly? Did you ever watch that one?
No, it's a very unimaginative title, but
it was a boy that could that he would fly. No, okay. Now I'm getting my. Okay.
If I was listening to
shows and movies.
Like, and what is it, Superboy? Because we could do Superman as a child, and he not just can fly, he can shoot eye lasers. So I'm not okaying the script. But you like this movie? This connected?
Oh, it's been a long time. I think I'm in my brain is mixing up that movie, a show, and then like another little side bit from another movie, and
maybe
it's
you're
all
thinking about My Secret Identity, where the kids
that's
fly
with the spray cans. Yeah, that's spray cans for sure.
What a fucking awesome idea that was.
My
There's so many
Identity.
that is such a silly idea. Yeah. Oh, today's special was a classic kids show.
Jeff, Muffy, Sam. Oh, baby, yeah. Today's special is the way it is. Yeah, for sure.
Crenshaw. Oh man, it was good.
And our classic Mr. Dress Up, obviously. Mr. Dress Up. He can't. That's it.
I guess good. I'm not really remembering. Oh wait. Yeah, didn't he have
the tickle trunk? The tickle trunk, and he had the kid and the dog. Casey and Finnegan.
Pokeroo. We loved it, man. Let's talk about 1980s. I'll go there.
Oh, boy.
The Never Ending Story. We got to rent a movie once a week, and my movie every week was Never Ending Story, and my sister's movie every week was Annie. Not only did we get to rent a movie once a week, you had to rent the entire VCR. We didn't.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Like
$20
a week to rent it for a few hours. It was pretty awesome back in those days. I wish that I could buy Blockbuster and start it over again, because I stopped watching movies because the format of how you watch movies on TV is so awful. It's a list of text that you scroll on a movie, even when it has the titles and you're scrolling by it on Netflix. Each description is written by the producer, and you have no way of getting an honest opinion. And the only way you could ever get an honest opinion was being in an actual store with a nerd that had no reason to live except for movies. Okay.
What do you think about this?
For movies. And they looked like couch marmots, and you would ask them, what's the best movie? It's like, you want a good movie in the 99-cent section? Mosquito Coast. That's a pretty good one with River Phoenix and Harrison Ford. And I'm like, Mosquito Coast. And me and my wife rented it. It's the 99-cent movie. We're like, this is fucking awesome. We saved spending $5.99 on a new release. And you get to keep a 99-cent movie for 3 days.
Oh, yeah.
So it was, the times were wild. And it was
we did
go out and do something.
Growing up in summers, the local video store I had was 5 movies for 5 nights for $5. So I was a big horror fiend. So I'd go rent the Friday the 13th or the Nightmare on Elm Street, whatever, 5 of them. I'd spend 1 or 2 days just watching them back to back, and then I'd go the next day, return them, and get another one. It would just spent my entire summer gorging myself on movies like that Couch Marmot you mentioned.
Yeah, horror movie guys. I don't understand you guys. I don't know why you want to feel that way so often. You're living on the edge. You can't help yourself from falling.
I can't help it. Yeah.
I
Oh, the
do
childhood
enjoy.
trauma. I just want to live again.
My wife loves the fucking horror movies, and she would drag me to all kinds of. I remember Dark Water, Jennifer. I remember watching The Grudge with her and laughing, and she got mad at me. She got mad at me for laughing in the theater because she's like, "What?" I'm like, "Well, essentially, we were just watching this whole movie, and she Googles the answer at the end. It's not like they wrote some cool scene where she's walking into a bar and sees the same feather boa that was at the beginning of the movie. There's not even that written in. It's just like type in who was the killer." I'm just like, you're fucking Grudge. I think it was The Grudge. It was some movie where they just Googled the answer at the end of like building up to like, are we gonna have some cool twist happen here? Yeah.
Well,
So my wife's on board with you with the horror movies. Me, not so much. I don't think I just like internet now. I like YouTube or just I'm so at the whim. I feel bad at how, and I don't blame people when you like tweet about this and you're like, everyone come over to Rumble, and only like one person comes out of like 200 people that said they were coming. I understand that because I do it with people that I really enjoyed listening to. Like when it was easy to listen to Stefan Molyneux on YouTube every day, I would listen to him every day. I'm like, this guy's fucking well thought out. He speaks really well. And then the second he was removed, I never went looking for him. You know what I mean?
Wrong.
You feel this guilt. You're like, I have media narcissism where I don't even try to go find someone if they change venues, right? So it's hard to like cross over.
It is hard, and like it's like a 10-to-1. Actually, that's not fair. It depends on the content. But I'm on YouTube. We're streaming right now to YouTube and Rumble, and I guess it depends on the episode. But you'll get way more traction on one versus the other. The clips on YouTube do way better. The live streams on Rumble do way better. Yeah. Twitter seems to be the place right now for this type of content because YouTube and Facebook, LinkedIn seems to get kind of abysmal.
Like, there's a lot. If you're really wanting to build a channel, there are big names who bring big numbers. I'll never, like, I enjoy talking to you, but I'll never bring you big numbers. I would barely bring myself big numbers. If I was to start streaming tomorrow and all I did was pump it on Twitter, I'd be ecstatic to get 30 watching live, but that's cool. It's like everyone wants you to be in your little pigeonhole box. They don't want to see, Kramer on Broadway. They want him to walk into Jerry's apartment and go, "Hi, here's a 2-minute rant on Twitter," and then they want you to be on your way. So that's what, unless I invest and really keep doing lives on a steady routine with people, like if you're doing that, then fuck yeah, it's going to work. You need a Viva Fry in here. You need a Randy Hillier. You need a.
And you need to be doing it every friggin' day. There's a guy out here in Alberta. There's a guy here out in Alberta, Jason Levine. He does like twice a day. He's like twice a day.
Fonzarelli. He's Henry Winkler. You need Henry Winkler Levine on here.
That's right. But so I do it once a week. Twice a day, every day is a bit much for me to handle, right?
Yeah, it's hard, man. It's like even coming to do this it's hard to even make time. When you have 3 kids, it's hard to make time, which is why I tell people, like, I can pretty much do anything if you go late enough. But if you're asking for stuff around my kids' bedtime, ooh, it's so rough. It's so hard because I barely see them. They get super excited if I get home late, if I'm working a lot of hours. Like I'm in a seasonal biz where we're doing like 60 hours a week right now. Then it'll drop to like 10 hours a week. So that's it's the biz we're in, man, and I love it. I did the ad world too, where that was a routine. That was me going to an office every day at Young and Shepherd in that Nestle building and doing artwork creative for fucking chocolate. And it was amazing, but it got boring, bro. Men want to do something that they can take pride in. It can be digging a ditch. It can be fucking cleaning toilets, but put me in an atmosphere where it's boardrooms and people being politically correct. I understood that I was always a bit of an Alex Jones outside opinioner. They can destroy you in that industry. right? You have to be on LinkedIn. You've got to be on, where in the trades, you're like, no one cares. No one cares, bro. If you're not doing a job that requires you to wear work boots, you pretty much can't have an opinion. You
You're
know,
not wrong.
corporate culture is so whacked with all their stakeholder capitalism and gathering in Davos and agreeing with politicians that corporations should now have a moral structure, and their moral structure is communist to the bone. It's really fucked. And I love the people I worked with. It was as dream a gig as I could get for having no experience in the field of advertising, just a connection that gets me in there and says, you're going to shepherd emails from the client to the designer and work with accounts and do all this. And I thought when I was working in my trade, I'm like, grass is greener. I don't want to be unloading trucks in Calgary in the fucking snow. And I want to just have a little office I go to, and it's like cheers and everyone knows my name. And, it's not for me. Guys want to be good at something and do a trade. That's my advice.
Yeah, exactly. You want to have something that lasts, you want to have something that means something. You need to be connected to a mission that means something. That's a
just
positive.
Have pride in something. Feel that you're good at something. I hit nails into shingles on a roof. That's great. I hit boards. I make the structure to pour concrete into. If every guy has that one thing, life is pretty good. We're pretty low maintenance individuals. I don't envy women and how complex their frustrations are about the world. When you're a dude, it's pretty much a win-win scenario that you get home, your kids didn't jump off the house again and, go to the hospital with a broken arm. Every day where there's not a major emergency is pretty much a holiday. And people are like, oh, you need to go on vacation. I'm like, I'm on vacation every night at 9 p.m. if I have a fucking J. I'm doing a little vacation at 9 p.m., bitch.
This is the one thing. So the beautiful thing about our lifestyle right now, it's, as you said, it's hard sometimes, right? You drop down from a certain income to and you got to figure out how to make ends meet. But I will say this, I don't, except for the odd time I've had to drive to an appointment outside of the city or something like that, outside to the city. I don't remember the last time since being like that I've ever set an alarm clock. Like the one time I had to drive to Edmonton like a couple of weeks ago, I set my alarm clock so I could be there on time for the thing I had to video. But I don't set an alarm clock. Wake up when you wake up. It's usually when the kids come in the room and get into bed with you, and it's just it's definitely a nice change from being in Toronto. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm alarm clock city. I got to wake up tomorrow. I'm up at 5 a.m. Got to be at work for 6:30. And I don't care. It's not like I can get 3 hours of sleep and it's not a big deal in the least. It's not a big deal in the least. Probably the next day at like 6 p.m. if I sit down and want to watch soccer, I won't realize that I'll have like a nap and my eyes will close. Right. You'll get the drowsies, but it's not a big deal. There are so many people that are big pusses about their sleep time, and I'm not one of them. It's a superpower, so I'm going to brag about it. I can go probably 5 days in a row with 4 hours sleep each night. And I won't be the happiest cat. You know what I mean? But it won't be miserable. Where I think other people have 8 hours or I'm no good. I'm no good. Betty White
After
was
I
on
watched
5 hours a night. Just remember that. Betty White was 5 hours a night and she lived to be 90, God knows what.
Well, I think everybody's different. I watched Matthew Walker on a Joe Rogan episode, and he was the sleep doctor talking about the critical importance of the 7 hours of sleep, and that made me paranoid about it for a while, but then real life kicked in, and it is what it is.
That's just another narcissist. Yeah, of course it would be optimal, but your body's going to be fine. Yeah, everyone's over worried. Yeah, it's just, and dude, I'm playing soccer, bro. I'm trying to keep, the only problem is I eat everything. Like there's no diet, there's no distinction. If I see 7 donuts, I'll eat 7 donuts right now. You know what I mean? So I'm not out of shape. I don't have a big gut, but it would be starting to be a first trimester of a gut, but not like, it's not jiggling, but it's not right. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean.
It's not right, but it's not awful. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I did. I started. say gave up alcohol almost. On occasion, I'll have a drink. I'm not like I don't drink, but I don't really drink.
You're just
And
normal.
yeah, just normal. And I don't really have. I can't say I watch my diet, but we don't really eat too unhealthy. But again, like chips or popcorn or chocolate, like I'll eat those too. But since hitting the gym 3 days a week,
Nice.
nothing crazy. 3 days a week, an hour each time. I've lost about 10 pounds in the last 9 months, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I had to get in a bathing suit because it was falling off.
Everything feels better when you're less weight.
Yeah.
And there's guys that are like, man, you could get big. I'm like, I like soccer. I want to look ridiculously undersized. It would look pathetic to you, but to me, I would be able to run for a full 90, and that's the route I would love to go. But I feel bad for myself. When I work long hours, you get home and you just don't want to jog. You just don't want to do sit-ups and push-ups like I would do if I wasn't busy,
Right.
But at least at work, I'm lifting heavy shit a lot, and I'm keeping that kind of busy. But I believe that there is a mind-body connection of healing. Many people that I remember, it was like someone talking about the connection between depression and chronic illness is like 99%. Like people with depression, there is something that they're going to say, oh, my knee, like there's going to be an injury that they're worshiping. And I believe that if everyone just pretends they're Wolverine with a superhuman healing factor, that your wounds will heal. And if you stay active, it's telling your body, hey, heal up, regenerate that cartilage, because he's not done yet. Because I had the luxury of playing with guys for the last 20 years on our soccer team, the Durham Lions back home, with my best friend who's been running that team the whole time. He's an amazing soccer player. And we've noticed our friends that drop off the team, they'll be the guys that when we ask them after a game, like they'll have a full game, they'll have a good run, and then they'll let us know. They'll be like, I'm going to take the hammy, give it a rest next week. I'm just going to rest it. Anyone that says stuff like that, they drop off within a year. We don't kick them out. They just find a way to be injured and say, I can't sign up. I'm probably going to get surgery next year, but this year I'm just laying off. And they become 300-pound men, and they never do it again. But the guys who are always there and their body never breaks down. And my old drummer is like 47, 48, and he outruns 20-year-olds. And the guys that stay with us the whole time, we're injured, but we still go. We still play on our injuries. We still just say, hey, don't make me last man back tonight because something's wrong with my leg. But at no point will we consider not playing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's some connection with the body to the mind. That's as spiritual as I'll get for you. Where when the body is convinced you're going to keep using it, it keeps it ready. And people that give up, the body will say, okay, I'll do what you're saying. I'll degrade in that critical area because you're not using it. You're not putting any resistance to this. I don't know. And I did an interview with Dr. Patrick Phillips when I was trying to do a Rumble channel. I did do it. I'm proud of the stuff I did on it. But I interviewed him for like 3 hours. And he talked about the mind-body placebo effect. We were talking about COVID and the nocebo and how if you convince everyone that there's illness everywhere, they'll become ill just psychosomatically. And then he was mentioning the placebo effect and how he'd read a study about where he'd been part of a study at a hospital. I can't remember what he said, but anyways, it was a study, and I did look into it. I found the receipts on it. It was done, where they were doing total knee replacement surgeries, and total knee replacement surgeries have a success rate of 70%. And so what they did was a placebo control where they would cut open people's knees, not do anything, close them up, and those were the placebo knee replacements. And they had an identical 70% recovery rate for the placebo knees as the full replaced knees. So
Crazy.
What's that tell you guys? Just, I don't know what does it, but when you want your body to be used for something, it will regenerate like Wolverine.
Ignorance is bliss, right? It's like when you're driving your car or whatever, you take it to the mechanic for oil change or whatever reason. And they're like, all the time, it's like, oh yeah, it just took this one bearing to like fall off and your whole car would have exploded. You would have slid off the road. And it's amazing that you're still alive all the time.
Yeah. But cars are inanimate metal. We are living cells that are susceptible to whatever placebo magic I'm mentioning to you. Okay, so don't degrade us to mechanical inanimate metal.
We're not just materialistic.
Unless you've been boosted with the latest injections, then you might have enough graphene oxide to be considered in your car analogy.
I saw I can't remember the exact. I was just reading this yesterday, I think, and it was some lady that was complaining about some side effect, right? Like, I can't do this anymore, and she's like, after I got boosted, I XYZ, and I stopped reading because I was like, boosted, which means you've had at least 3.
Yeah,
you got 3 of them, right? It's like I don't know what to tell you at this point.
you don't think that they deserve answers of like, why mix and match in Canada? Why tell us that the first one could be Pfizer, the second one could be AstraZeneca? Why would you do something like that? That almost reveals that it's a fraud. It does reveal that it's a fraud. What was the reason why, if there's 40,000 billion lipid nanobubbles in each injection, as Dr. Shoemaker said, why would there be a need for a round 2? What the fuck is going on? Like,
because the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil, I think.
Right? And people need to start asking these questions and go, wow, like the reason that these lipid nanobubbles were developed was to treat Parkinson's and brain cancer, because these things could escape the blood-brain barrier. Yet they told you as soon as it enters your arm, it's just going to dissolve. No, it was designed to go everywhere. That's what it's doing. And the spike protein causes inflammation. And so they knew it would go to the brain. They knew it would cause inflammation. And they keep pumping it into people. Not only do they keep pumping you in, the reason they stopped using it for brain cancer and Parkinson's was they found that the lipid bubbles were toxic and that they were not good to keep putting in you. And the reason that they got over this hurdle for development for the vaccine was they said, well, it's a vaccine, so it'll only be used once. So there you go. We've solved that, right? But then they fucking lied. They know it's toxic. Like, that is such a big hurdle for people to get over. And I think we need to wrap sooner. I'm not going to be able to. I lied about everything I told you earlier. I don't want 3 hours sleep. I want at least 4. But they lied to these people, and they took an obscene attitude to an experiment where you're supposed to know about what experiments are. You do it on a small group. You do it on a molecule. Then when you get that done, you do it on a hamster. Then when you get that, after years, you do it on a cat or a monkey or something, but you go through these stages. They started at human, and not only did they take the obscene stance that we're not going to, what they should have done is go, look, guys, we need 30,000 volunteers. We're going to pay you like $100,000 because this is risky. You're really being a monkey shot into space for the better of mankind. We really appreciate what you're doing. This is amazing if you sign on for this, but it is very risky. We have not done this, but because it's an emergency scenario, we're looking for volunteers. And people would have came forward, okay, if you were honest and transparent. I mean, they came forward with the lie, but you wouldn't have to go to hell for your response to COVID in this world of proper science. But instead, they said, no, everyone needs to get in. We don't want a control group. We're so certain of this project that the less of you that get in, the worse it's going to work. And that was everyone's moment to check their spider sense and go, this doesn't make sense. And no one did that. So we're going to be caught in purgatory until these people right the wrongs. It's like that restless ghost that can't go into the light with Patrick Swayze until it's corrected all its wrongs. That's like people that have been vaccinated. It's like your life will get worse and worse until you face this monster. It's weird.
I think that's
an up note to end on, isn't it?
I was just saying that's the perfect way to end. Alex,
get your spirit right.
I really do appreciate you coming on. Let's take a look at some of these comments here. Oh, there's just some of the people talking to each other in the comments, so that's good. We have some friends here. I appreciate you coming on. Appreciate you giving us the time, and I'd love to have you on again. Definitely good to talk to you, and wish you the best over there in Halifax. My dad was born in Peggy's Cove. I don't know if you know, so we have some affinity. Awesome. Yeah, I've never been to
all the time. We run on the rocks. It's pretty rad.
I've never been. Definitely want to go for obvious reasons. Dad was born there. See the lay of the land. But yeah. Anyway, sir, have yourself a good night. Get yourself some sleep.
All right.
Awesome. Appreciate you, bro. Have a good one.